Looks a bit wet in Melbourne today. So, look, I think it's good for us to get those offensive opportunities in a place where you can play against a team that, again, not the strongest defensive team, but a team that's had a pretty good back half of the year.
Is there a danger in trying to exploit Essendon's defence in any way, though, and then you lose track of other areas of the ground?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think we're trying to balance what we do a little bit more. We've had these sort of wide-ranging games where we've taken lots of marks to games where we haven't taken many marks at all. And generally, if we take too many or we don't take enough, they're both losing spaces for us. So it's trying to find the balance in our game, improve our contest and the cleanness of our hands. We had some really unforced giveaways last week against Richmond that hurt us. And then, we've sort of changed the defence a little bit today with only two tall backs to give us a little bit more ground ball support, but also a little bit more offensive punch there too.
Nathan Bassett joining us on ABC Sport. You do have some more Arsenal coming into your forward line. Mitch Georgiadis is back, Todd Marshall as well. How will that help you in your line and in your forward structure? Yeah,
well, Todd's been the best forward in the team this year. So Todd and Sam Powell-Pepper have been had both really strong seasons in the forward half. Mitch is still getting shots on goals. This year he's kicked points. Last year he kicked more goals. And I think he's learning a lot about playing footy. He's come in as a guy that didn't play in his 18th year. Barely played in his first year because of COVID, so played 7 AFL games, no SANFL games. So he's still a very young player, turns 21 in September and has great qualities and some significant weaknesses that he's trying to work on. So, look, I think Todd gives us a threat. He's a smart footballer. He helps the other players set up. George will bring his athleticism. And, look, we're working on him becoming a more well-rounded footballer so that we can get some more consistent avenues to goal.
What do you think Mitch took out of going back to the SANFL last week? Was it a confidence thing, or were there other things that he worked on that he's able to take into the match today?
Yeah, well, it was good for him to touch a footy, which he hadn't done the week before. And also remember that he is a significantly better athlete than at the next level down playing footy. So, he's working on his football skills as much as anything, whether it be his field kicking, his ground ball work, how to defend and be part of our team defence. So it's all the bigger picture things that Mitch is working on, because in terms of his running ability, his aerial ability is outstanding. So it's all those other parts of being a footballer that as a 21-year-old he's still working on.
And then you have the experience of Dixon and Finlayson, who now are resting in the forward line when they're not in the ruck. How do you have to alter that as well? And how have you gone? Obviously, it's a different ruck combination, working with that combination and trying to work with how they go when they go into the forward line. Yeah,
look, it hasn't been ideal this year to not have a ruckman. Scott Lycett, really missing the whole season since round 4. It was good to get a look at Bryn last week, and he's a 22-year-old mid-season draft pick coming off a fractured collarbone, so it's not surprising he got pushed around a bit by Nankervis. Look, Charlie will be forward more than Jeremy. Jeremy's done some really good things around the clearances and he supports our ground ball game. Charlie's done some great things in both areas for us in the back half of the season. Probably struggled a little bit more when he's had to do a 50% of both. So hopefully we can ruck more of Jeremy today, that he can compete against the Essendon rucks, and Charlie can support it there whilst being a consistent target in the forward line.
Is that a focus, or is it a concern, I guess, looking at last week against Richmond in the ruck when you come up against Draper and Wright? Yeah,
absolutely it is. It's Brian playing today, I think, too, as their second ruckman. So Draper's a big, strong thing that is pretty aggressive, and that's going to challenge us at times. And, Nankervis had 13 first possessions and had 30 possessions and, really dominated the ruck. So if we can break even, or at least, we're not losing too badly in there, we know we get that extra ground level player in Jeremy or Charlie. And, hopefully we can get the ball in our forward half and kick some goals.
And you are coming into the match off 4 losses. Obviously, there's been some external noise about the coach and the coaching staff heading into next year. Has it affected the pressure around the club internally?
I think they can be talking points like anything. I think we wouldn't be human if we didn't mention it at some stage, but our focus is always improving our players, improving the way we play, and improving us as a team. So that's been the focus.
Nathan, thanks very much for joining us on ABC Sport. Good luck today.
Thank you.
Lauren Borden downstairs there with Nathan Bassett taking us inside the Port Adelaide camp. So he said He's felt the pressure a little bit internally, but hopefully for Port Adelaide fans, he can block it out along with the rest of his team this afternoon. Ken Hinckley obviously given reassurances for the end of next year. We often see, Chris Johnson and Karen Peterson, that there is a bit of a change of assistant coaches, and sometimes that does refresh a group. Just give us a bit of an insight into that relationship, not only with the head coach but the assistant coach. So talk to us, Kez, about your line coach and how that differs from the head coach.
Yeah, I'm in a little bit of a privileged position, I guess, being captain, that my relationship with our head coach is probably as strong than probably anyone else at our group, in our group rather, just because of the communication that's required, through the week, just to make sure that the playing group and the coaching staff are aligned and we can get the best out of ourselves. But my review, post-game, and all of our players' review post-game is done with our line coach. So most of the time, the players actually probably have more communication with their line coach than what they do their head coach. And that's just because as a head coach, and, obviously in the AFL, in the men's program, there's, 45 players that the coach has to be across. And it would be unrealistic to think that, as a head coach, you could be across everything at any given time, plus all the support staff and everything that Jono was talking about before. So the relationship with the line coach needs to be strong with their individual players. And sometimes, as you mentioned before, it can bring that really, I guess, refreshed some ideas and attitudes and those sort of things. And, you often see a lot of the time that the assistant coaches will swap, from defensive to midfield, to forward. And very rarely will you see an assistant coach stay in the same position for, a really extended amount of time. So, the relationships with all of your coaches are really important, but particularly your line coach is most important.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see what Port Adelaide do in the off-season and whether there might be some movement around Ken Hinckley in terms of his assistants. Andrew Mays and Joel Peterson call the action for you. Your experts on Grandstand AFL this afternoon, Karen Peterson and Chris Johnson. Now, Essendon today, we will also mention that they're wearing their jersey with the yellow armband as well for the for tackling the childhood cancer clash. So this has become an annual thing in partnership with Challenge. Of course, our Grandstand's very own Adam Ramanauskas, a cancer survivor, and he actually started this tradition a number of years ago when he was still playing, and his inspirational comeback has paved the way for a few others, which he's seen this year as well. Obviously, more recently, Ben Cunnington, which was so inspirational over the last week or so. So a beautiful moment where we had 22 kids who were part of this round who came onto the field, including one who was in a wheelchair. So a beautiful moment to start this one as Essendon came out onto the field. If you are just joining us, the subs this afternoon: Hobbs for the Bombers and Mead for the Power. Let's get stuck into action on the field. Karen and Jono, tell us who's going to win this one this afternoon, where and why.
Yeah, look, I'm a little bit undecided on who's going to win. It's going to be a bit of a stab in the dark because I really don't know. When I've gone to the football this year and I've done both of these teams, they've been up and down in their form. I think under the roof here, Essendon do play better. I have seen Peter Wright really tear games apart here throughout this year, and he seems to like it under the roof a little bit more than what he does at the MCG or other venues. So I think if they're able to get first use of the ball through the middle of the ground, I think Essendon, they're going to be able to give that supply in there with Wright and Stringer at the same time. I think them having those guys down there, and then obviously Langford as well being down there, I think their forward line is going to be certainly up and about. I just don't know how the defence is going to hold up for Port Adelaide. I don't know. There's, Alira's probably the only one key down there that's going to be able to hold down probably Peter Wright. And, what I do know about Alir, that he does tend to sag off and does tend to try and read the ball. And I think in these venues, especially today underneath the roof here, the ball gets moved so quick as into the forward line. I don't think he's going to have that luxury where the ball's going to be sitting up in the wind or held up a little bit more. So for me, I think that's around the Essendon midfield, how much supply they actually give to their forward line, and that supply will then come whether it's pressured supply or it's unpressured supply. So there's a lot of work for the Port Adelaide midfield, what they'll need to be in check. And, obviously we've got Boak there and a few others there to sort of getting on a little bit on the fast track here in underneath the roof here is going to be a real challenge for them. But I think tonight for me, or this afternoon or this evening, I think it's going to be the Bombers tonight. They've got nothing to lose. They are obviously not thinking that they need to be here at the moment. And I think Draper at the moment in the ruck, he's given his midfielders the best opportunity to be first users of the ball.
I'll make it a little bit interesting. I'm going to say that Port Adelaide's best is better than Essendon's best. However, I will asterisk both of those teams because we've seen some pretty ordinary performances from both. So if Port Adelaide play at their absolute best, I think they're better. Their best game is better than Essendon. Last week, Essendon, there was some really obvious deficiencies that led them to having a really poor performance. And the one thing that I'd like to highlight is their forward 50 tackles. They were beaten 16-1. So I have absolutely no doubt that the Essendon forward line had the heat put on them during the week. That would have been highlighted enormously, that their pressure and their intent to keep the ball locked inside their forward 50 just was nowhere near it for last week and where it needs to be. However, I'm going to tip Port Adelaide just to make it interesting, Jono.
One each, so Kez with the power and Jono with the Bombers, as both teams have pretty much completed their warm-ups. The captains are out in the middle and we'll be deciding which way to kick very shortly. Let's head downstairs to get a bit of a sense of the crowd this afternoon on a pretty cool day in Melbourne. Lauren Borden, good afternoon to you.
Good afternoon, Maisie. It is nice to be down here on the boundary, even though it is a little chilly. It's a nice crowd that's been coming in. Probably the last 10 minutes or so, we've seen a few more numbers coming in. So it should be probably about 30,000 here for the Bombers' last home game and their last match at Docklands tonight. Well, I guess it's the first one that Port Adelaide have played this year at this venue. It was Dyson Heppel, the captain, who's just won the toss for Essendon. So they'll be kicking to the Coventry end of the ground. Like you mentioned, Ben Hobbs is the medi-sub for the Bombers out of the starting 22. Jackson Mead will be sitting on the pine for Port. So it'll be interesting to see what attitude each of these two sides brings into this game, and if they can pull it together for a win, playing for pride today and trying to get the win, we'll see who can do it.
Looking forward to it, Loz. Looking forward to your contribution throughout the evening as well. Now, just at the SCG, it is half-time. We'll give you updates all throughout the afternoon on Sydney v Collingwood. The Swans leading at half-time, 5-7-37 to the Pies, 3-4-22. A bit of an injury concern for Jack Ginnivan, who's off at the major break. So we'll update you on that score. A very important score in terms of the context of the top four and the top eight all throughout the afternoon. But all eyes focused here under the roof on Port Adelaide and Essendon. Port Adelaide hoping to make it 10 wins. It'll be the first time since in a decade that they haven't put 10 wins together in a season if they underperform over the next fortnight. So they'll be looking to finish strong. Essendon looking to take some positive steps towards 2023 as well. On Grandstand AFL, here's Joel Peterson.
Sam Draper struts around the centre circle before he goes crashing into Jeremy Finlayson to get us underway. He rises highest and controls it straight down, but Finlayson with the opening clearance for the power. Kicks inside the 50. Dixon the target. Laverty a hand in there. Marshall was brilliant. Knocked it to Boat. Lightning start for the power. Straight away they go inside forward 50. The clearance work from the stand-in ruck Jeremy Finlayson, and Port with a goal within 15 seconds.
It's a little bit unlucky there because Draper really dominated that hit out and had very clear possession towards his midfielders, but the ball just bobbled around, and Finlayson, that's what he's going to have to do all day, John. He's just going to have to be close enough and competing and stay in it almost like a fourth midfielder around the stoppage. And if they can have forward 50 entries with running through like Boak was just then, the midfielders running through, that's a terrific start by Port Adelaide.
Well, Boak started at half forward as well, so McGrath just got caught ball watching then, didn't he? He just thought it was going to come front and square. He positioned himself for that, but then that was just clever by Marshall.
Finlayson and Draper again in the ruck. Draper this time down to Parrish. His hand pass knocked down by Finlayson though. Goes back, fetches again. Hand pass over the top to Burne-Jones. Hook around the corner is okay to the wing. Lands on the chest of Powell Pepper, who wants to go aggressively into the middle. It's a risky kick. Coming up from half forward, Guelphy takes the chest mark. Right in the centre circles, thought about going quickly as Kelly short, goes longer to half forward instead. It's going to bounce in front of Perkins, had to sit and absorb the pressure, went defend. Umpire's got a decision to make, he's going to pay holding the ball.
Just didn't need to do that, Perkins. He probably could have very gently tapped it onto his teammate who was running past instead of taking possession.
Houston was in on the tackle for the Power. You mentioned how much better Essendon are here at Docklands, Jono. They're 5-3 here this season. They are 2-10 at other venues. It's a vast discrepancy. 10-4 over the past 2 years here, Essendon. 8-21 elsewhere. As Draper kicks to half forward. Peter Wright's out with 2 hands outstretched. Can't take it in. Butters collects on the hop at half back for the Power. Kicks into the centre of the ground. Marshall enjoying a breakout campaign. Showing all his footy smarts in the build-up to that opening goal. Flares the kick back out wide to Butters. Has a lead from Pal Pepper. Kicks to the pocket. Bombers numbers everywhere. It's easily picked off by Laverty inside the D50.
Very risky short kick is intercepted. Pal Pepper onto it. Hand pass was okay to Georgiades. Concedes some ground outside of defensive 50. Now chance for Burn Jones. He was going to enter 50, instead swung it out wide by hand to Rosie. Gets on his bike, short kick, no good, turnover. Merritt in the way. Kick over the top, looking for Stringer. He'll let it bounce in front of himself and out for a boundary throw in between wing and half forward for the Power.
I think in the first 3 minutes for me, Kez, what it's telling me in my eyes is urgency. I think Port Adelaide at the moment, their urgency is so high and their ability to spread from a contest is so much better than Essendon at the moment. Essendon will need to step up to the plate.
Port by 6, Draper down, Heppel, underground hand pass was okay to Shield, pokes the pass forward. It looked like it was going to be wide of right, but he stretched to his right and was able to reel it in.
Their long arms. They are. Big Peter got the go-go gadget arms out and was able to pull it in, sends it inside the 50. Langford the target. Coming across to take an easy intercept mark was Houston. He was almost impeded there as he went back to take his kick by Perkins.
Well, Perkins got a big role to play. If Houston's going to take him, he's an intercept marker.
Oh, it's an average kick straight down the throat of Wright. Allaire had to collect on the bounce. He's tackled by McGrath, brought down on the front point of the square, ball up.
I think, Kez, what's going to happen, if he's going to fly, I think Perkins got to fly with him, give a contest, and just bring it down the ground level. You just can't allow Houston just to come across and float across the front of a pack like that and take an uncontested mark.
Draper, brilliant tap to Heppel. He was wrapped up immediately. Another stoppage, edge of the centre square. Tossed up. Finlayson again in the ruck. Draper again wins it. Down to Shield. He hand passes inside to Martin. From 45 directly in front. Swings back late for a goal. Lovely stoppage work from the Bombers, and they level things up at a goal apiece after 4 minutes on Grandstand AFL.
Really classy finish there. I'm just watching the replay. Port Adelaide just got sucked into the contest there, Jono, so they're going to have to just get the shape and the balance around the contest a little bit better, particularly at the moment, because Draper's winning the hit out so dominantly at the moment. The shape and the balance for Port Adelaide, they're going to have some players at the front of the stoppage and the behind the stoppage to really cover off all exits for Essendon, because all they did there was Port Adelaide players got sucked in. Essendon were able to flick the ball over the top, and once it gets there, the defenders have got no chance. If the midfielders are coming streaming in that hot, the defenders for Port Adelaide, they've just got absolutely no chance at all. So the shape and balance around stoppage is going to be really important.
Well, Nick Martin going for 19 goals for 19 games at the moment, so he's got a good strike rate.
Hell of a debut campaign. 6th hit out in ruck for Draper back in the centre. None for Port Adelaide so far. Bonner accepted the kick out wide though. Out to Farrell. The Castlemaine product sends it inside the 50. Zerk Thatcher floats across. The boy from Murray Bridge takes the intercept mark at the top of the defensive 50. Sends it out wide to Kelly, who spent 110 games at Westlakes playing in Crows colours. Thought about going back to Zerk Thatcher. He's going to send it down the city side. Target was Stringer, ran into Dersma, spilled to Burn Jones, to Rosie, brought down by Wright, got the handball away back to Dersma. Infield now to Boak and to Houston, comes across the centre square, finds Butters by foot.
Butters uses Burgoyne running past, kick inside 50, Zerk Thatcher again, up high, hung in the air, knew there was contact coming from behind, and when it's Charlie Dixon, that's a bit of bravery required there.
A couple of times now, Kez, what we've seen is Essendon is win the ball back in their defensive 50, but just the spread has been very, very slow in trying to give options to Sir Thatcher, who's taken a couple of contested marks at the moment. They're just slowing things right down. They're looking for a switch as much as possible, Essendon.
Fled it out wide to Heppel and then to Merritt. He switches back to Ridley inside 50. Off to Laverde. So they've worked this from left half back to right half back. Now Laverde 5 metres in from the boundary. Kicks just over the wing. Butters in front. Spoiled away from him at ground level. No one able to wrench it free. Caldwell in over the top. He falls over. Umpire says, I'll have it right on centre wing in front of the interchange. 7 played opening term. Goal apiece. Andrew Mays and Joel Peterson calling it for you. Karen Peterson and Chris Johnson, your experts.
Draper on the boundary, so Brian was in ruck. Parrish tried to measure his kick along the boundary line, floated out of bounds on the full to be taken by Byrne Jones at left half back from one All-Australian defender for the Power to another. Byrne Jones in 2020 to Aliir in 2021 to Houston. He's 30 out from his defensive goal. Directs his kick toward Drew. Dropped it into the bucket over the outstretched arm of Merritt. And Drew has got it 65 out from his defensive goal. Not a lot that he likes, so he kicks a high kick onto the AFL logo. Wine Skies takes a nice contested mark. The Brownlow medalist rolls around onto his right boot, sends it inside the 50. Marshall will have to fly from the back, brought it down to the front. Rosie, spin move, blind handball, didn't find a teammate on the end of it. Picked up by McGrath for the Bombers, wobbles a kick down the line, taken by Wines.
Wines darts one inboard, and it's a good kick too. Good man to have it as Connor Rosie takes it. Just favoured that left leg a little as he came down. It's heavily strapped around the knee, but he'll line up from about 50, 45-degree angle to the left.
Just a poor kick out of the defensive 50 from Andrew McGrath. I know he did shank it, Cares, but give it some height to allow your defenders to go and get themselves in the right position to defend a quick inside forward 50 like the Port Adelaide Football Club just done.
He's enjoyed a good season, Connor Rosie. In he comes, strikes from 49. It's across the face, coming back late. And mark on the line, maybe. Yes, it's paid. I don't even think we're going to bother going upstairs. No, we are eventually, which is usually what happens these days with a close call.
Chris Johnson was dynamite on the video reviews last night. Jono, what are your thoughts here?
Oh, well, the sexy screen here, it's not doing it for me. So these screens are a bit too high.
That's
They're
not the
like
question
the ones
we're
at
asking.
the MCG. I think there is a part of the ball that is still in play by the evidence that is presented to me on the screen. So I'm going to say it's going to be a mark.
Yep, and you can hear the groans of the Essendon fans below as it's been announced. So this looks like it is going to be a mark on the behind line for Todd Marshall.
5 from 5, Jono.
Well done, Jono.
Oh, well, there's a lot of help from yourself and Jess and Berkey as well last night.
Good moment last night where the umpire said it had been last touched off the boot. So he fooled the whole crowd. It was a goal in the end. Anyway, we're on the behind line here with Todd Marshall. Left foot snap, steps out and delivers. Port Adelaide have their second. So after the opening 10 minutes here, under the roof, Essendon the goal, Port Adelaide 2 goals, the margin 1 straight kick. Marshall with his first of the afternoon.
It was a line ball call, whether that was a mark or whether it was over the behind line. But regardless, for the Essendon defenders, that's really poor checking. You can't allow someone to fly from 4 deep and take a mark on the goal line. They just need to do a much better job bodying the forward. Every defender knows that there's going to be a forward who's going to have a leap, whether it's unrealistic or not, at the ball when it comes in and drops short like it did. So really poor checking by the Essendon defenders there. They're going to have to do a much better job of that.
Brian's actually lucky he didn't give away 50 after Marshall took the mark. Yep. What a campaign he's had, Todd Marshall. So his 40th goal, 40 goals, 13. He was little more than a curiosity for a long time at Alberton, and he's delivered on the potential this season. Finlayson takes it out of the middle, combines with Drew to send it forward. Over the head of Dixon. Laverde leads the race back there, slapped out of play. Umpire says deliberate.
No. What more was he supposed to do? Grab it and just run over the boundary line?
The pressure was coming from Dixon. The free to be taken by Georgiades, who hooks it back superbly.
That should have been played on. That should have been out of bounds.
Mitch Georgiades around the body from behind the boundary line. Takes advantage of the deliberate call. And Port have got 2 quick ones to lead by 12. 3 straight the Power, 1 straight Essendon through 11 and a half minutes.
So, okay, he's paid deliberate, right? So then Georgiades was in his line. He was on the boundary line. He was outside the boundary, played on, outside the boundary. I assume that is a throw in. It is out of bounds.
Ben Brown last night.
Exactly right. So that should be called back and now be a throw in the left forward pocket. Well done to Georgiades. Thought his way through it, but that should be out of bounds.
It shouldn't have even been his kick. It was actually Charlie Dixon's kick. So he's done well there, Georgiades, to put one to his name.
Maybe we will get a shootout under the roof. 3 goals, plays 1. Port Adelaide in control here from the middle. No clearance this time. Ruck work being done by Dixon v. Bryan. Bryan palms it down. Butters was there, but it is a free kick. It's going the way of Bryan. So centre bounce clearance coming up here for the Bombers. Redmond was motoring past, calling for it. Bryan's going to take it instead and dump it inside 50. Guelphy got a little bit of separation late. Couldn't get to the contest though. Burne-Jones, hand pass over the top to Jonas. Off one step, kicks a floater. It's going to land 60 out from goal. Right went the spoil for the Bombers. Back into congestion. Bergman fashions a kick forward, almost to the wing. Zerk Thatcher, another intercept mark. He's having a nice day down back, takes it on halfway. His 3rd intercept mark for the afternoon.
Yeah, highlighting his athleticism, and a nice kick puts it into the path of Langford, who marks it left half forward. Powerful right foot kick, sends it to full forward. Peter Wright's the target, worked his way to the front, got out the back. Handball from Heppel, lightning. Perkins run down in the tackle. It ricochets back to the skipper, who throws it on the left boot, high up and under, right to the behind line. Guelphy fights for it. Houston steps it across for a minor score. Margin 11 points the way of the Power. Let's go downstairs to Lauren Borden.
Maisie, you mentioned Connor Rosie looking a little bit proppy a few moments earlier. He has got his left knee heavily strapped, but it's actually an issue with his right knee that he's pointed to. So had a few issues there, so we'll keep a watch on him.
All right, let's hope that's nothing too serious. Houston, meanwhile, from the kick out, all the way to halfway. Redmond didn't take the mark. Roved by Pal Pepper, who just slams it forward. And the only man back there was Ridley, who takes it inside defensive 50, short to Zerk Thatcher. Attacking kick is risky. Caldwell probably should have been paid the mark in the end. Hand pass was intercepted by Wines. Wines looking for support, had to stop, went back to Bergman. His hand pass a little bit too hot there for Amon, so he had to go back and mop up his mess. Then he turned it over by hand to Caldwell. Hand pass to Ridley, gets around one. Hand pass back inboard to Heppel. Heppel back inside defensive 50 to Shield, and now to Redmond. They've switched this okay, the Bombers. Martin has it at left half back.
Worked eventually. It just took them a long while to get there. Martin handballs to Kelly, slides the kick down the line. Langford dropped the mark, quickly under pressure. Umpire waves play on. Jonas had a hold of him. The Power come away with it. Low kick to Amon on the front edge of the square, up to McEntee. Handball inside the forward 50. Stolen by Martin. Free kick. And they won't take the advantage.
Well, Martin needed to give the ball back quicker to Shield because he was away. There was a switch on outside, and now what other players have been able to man this up now?
Yep, so it's a free kick to Dylan Shield, back to Zerk Thatcher, and now to Ridley. Port 3 straight, Essendon 1-1, 15 minutes played, opening term grandstand AFL.
Joel Peterson and Andrew Mays calling it for you. Kick over the top for the Bombers is all right, although Caldwell had to leap from behind. Burne-Jones there to mop up. His kick went about 3 metres, right in the breadbasket of Ridley. Got away to Durham, now to Perkins by hand, and then coming through Burne-Jones the other way. Intercepted. Bombers have numbers though. Comes out towards Laverty, who kicks long centrally. There's going to be a turnover, although Bergman dropped at the last moment. Pressure's on. Hadalier out the back for support. Hand pass to Houston, back to Alier. They've worked this okay. The Power, Alier pushed though as he kicks. Turnover ball, Parrish. Pressure being stepped up here by the Bombers.
Parrish wheels away, sends a long, high right foot kick inside the 50. Jonas comes across and spikes it out of play when Peter Wright thought for all money it was his. The fist of the Port Adelaide skipper sends it into touch.
Well, he had a mismatch on Jace Burgoyne, so he wanted the ball in quicker. It sort of just didn't go to his favoured side, so the kick could have been a little bit better.
Ball spins back in. Pal Pepper in ruck against Bryan. Bryan palms it down to the front of the pack. It'll spill to Pal Pepper in the end, who wheels away. Handball to Burgoyne. Turns one way, the other. Low, wobbly kick along the boundary line. Durham did well to jump in front of Travis Boak and slap it out of play at the junction of the 50 and the boundary. It'll be tossed back in again. Essendon's attacking half. Port by 11 through 16 and a half in the first.
Meanwhile, it's the Swans by 19 points, 44 plays. 21 points, 44 plays, 23 up there at the SCG. A couple of minutes into the third term. Durham, meanwhile, with the clearance, kicks inside 50, right from behind. Had to go the spoil in the end. It was a bit of a fumble from Butters. Hand pass went straight to Caldwell. Just got the hand pass away into congestion. Shield looking for the high tackle. Umpire wave play on. Good decision. Comes to Stringer. Banana misses.
Needed to do better there. Stringer had far more time than what he thought he did, and actually probably had a couple of teammates inside as well that he could have hit up.
1-2-8 the Bombers. 3 straight 18 the Power after 17 minutes in the opening term.
Do you reckon he's got a left foot, Kes?
I reckon he's got one. I don't know if he knows how to find it though.
Burgoyne, low kick outside the defensive 50, and Hind is able to chop it off for the Bombers, scurrying across to take it below his knees. Pokes the kick out wide to Martin. Martin to Redmond, who's marked it right on the arc. And we know he's got a raking right boot.
They're making it so easy for Port Adelaide to defend at the moment, Essendon. Right there when Martin had the ball, there was no one presenting at all.
Mason Redmond fancies his chances here. Kicked a couple of long goals this season among his 3 goals, 6. They can't decide whether they want to stand the mark or not, the Power players. Redmond's going to load up from long distance. Lets it go. Redmond with an absolute rocket right to the line. It's touched on the way through by Finlayson. Minor score, 9 points the spread. Port in control, 18 minutes played opening term.
They're coach killers, long points. Coach killers just putting it on the goal line. So easy for the defenders just to put it through. And guess what, Kes? They get the ball back. So try and put it to somewhere where the defenders have to defend.
Long kick out of defence for Port Adelaide. Comes the way of Boak. Hand pass was okay to McEntee. Off to Bonner. High kick. It'll land right in the centre circles. And taking it uncontested is Finlayson. He knew Dixon was out the back. Goes towards him. Charlie got up. And Charlie came down with a footy.
And that's, unfortunately for Nick Bryant, that's where he's going to get brought down with Finlayson. He's much more mobile around the ground, Kes, and he needs to be really close checking Finlayson when they win the ball. He's just going to stream forward, and unfortunately for Nick Bryant there, he just didn't read that ball in the air at all.
Charlie Dixon will start his approach from outside 50. He'll kick from about 35. Slide angle to the left. In he comes and makes no mistake. Port Adelaide have 4 goals in the opening term. Still plenty of time left too. 4 straight 24 plays, 1-3-9. We've played 19 minutes in this opening quarter on Grandstand AFL.
Yeah, well pointed out there, John. I absolutely agree that Brian's going to have his work cut out for him. We know that he's only young in his career, and I'm sure that he'll get some assistance and advice from his coaches, through the journey this afternoon. But that was a terrific kick by Finlayson. He just knew exactly where his teammate would be in Dixon, presenting up with authority through the centre of the ground. And as a defender, you get very nervous when the ball's coming in that quickly and you don't have time to set up. Unlike what Essendon were doing, where they were allowing the Port Adelaide defenders just to stand because there was no movement. That was the complete opposite. There was plenty of movement, the ball coming in fast, and the defenders are going to have to defend, which makes them nervous.
Finlayson, 4 disposals, 3 inside 50s, 2 clearances in his early work in the ruck this afternoon. Draper, the opposite ruck, got the clearance for the Bombers, tumbled it forward. Martin emerges through the contest, handball inside the 50, searching for Guelphy, rolls over Burgoyne in the tackle. Burton flicked it up by hand, through the hands of Burne-Jones to Rosie, who runs in an arc inside the defensive 50, sends it out toward Amon, bounced awkwardly for he and Redmond. Powell Pepper and Ridley scurry after it, neither can keep it in. We'll have it thrown back into play right in front of us in the Grandstand AFL commentary box. Margin 15 points the way of the Power, time on in the opening term.
Toss back into play. Another clearance this time for Draper, although defensive side of the stoppage was Butters. His chip missed Bergman. Gets around the back to Powell Pepper, who tried to play some soccer and get it to his own advantage. Bombers have numbers though. McGrath heard the voice out the back. It was Hind. Hand pass inboard is okay. He finds Merritt weaving his way through. Not sure it was intended for Wright, but it'll get there on the bounce. Right half forward, picks it up, gives it to Caldwell. who'd spotted a couple out the back. One of them was Guelphy. Great ball by Farrell, in over the top, saved the day for the Power and smashes it into the advertising hoarding.
Not the option that I thought was probably the right option. He needed the run, and he had a couple of teammates with him in Shield, and I think Big Peter Wright. They could have ran it all the way up inside 50 and had a shot on goal.
Draper and Finlayson lope over to the ruck contest. Draper wins it out the back. Shield takes it. Handball almost ended up with Travis Boak. Butters spins through the contest. Wines extracts it. Kicks an absolute sack up the line. Hardly spun as it wobbled through the air. Taken by Ridley for the Bombers. Long hand pass to Parrish on the AFL logo. To McGrath. Kick might have been touched on the way through. Dersma came crashing out. Couldn't take the mark. Cordwell spins through the traffic. He wobbles one goalward. It'll go up on the line. Aliir got rid of Wright and took the football away. Clearing kick will bounce in front of Durham, who can send it back in for the Bombers. Draws some support. A lovely step inside. Wonderful move to get inside of Bonner. Finds Shield. Shield on over the top. And D'Ambrosio's got it in the left forward pocket, 40 out.
Well, they need to convert here, Essendon, at the moment. They've gone forward 9 times for just only the 4 shots, and they haven't been able to get too much on the scoreboard. A couple of behinds, long points, which we spoke about, where Port Adelaide have been able to get the 5 shots from the 9 inside forward entries and being able to kick 4 goals straight. So they're pretty good in front of goal. This is a must-needed goal for Essendon.
Taken in the mid-season draft, Massimo D'Ambrosio hasn't scored in the big time. Massimo Bellissimo! His first goal in the AFL. And the Bombers come to celebrate with him. 9 points the spread. 4 straight 24 Port Adelaide. Essendon their second, 2-3-15. 23 gone in the opening term, and a nice moment for the Dons.
Yeah, that was a really great finish, actually. Not an easy kick on the left foot out there, so well done to him. I think the kick to him from Shield was all of about 14.5 metres, so he was probably lucky to have been paid the mark in the first place, but a great finish. What I'd like to see at the moment, really, both teams do is just try and almost slow down the manic way that both teams are trying to move the ball at the moment. It's causing a lot of unnecessary turnovers and a lot of spilt balls, a lot of missed targets. So I think if either team can get some ascendancy in ball control, they'll be able to find a way to go a lot easier than what they're doing at the moment.
Draper's sick of Finlayson pinching his clearance work, so he just smashes that one to half forward. Although the wave of Port Adelaide players, including Farrell off half back, he bombs it deep inside, attacking 50 for the Power. Now a chance at ground level for Boak. Just had an uncharacteristic fumble at the last moment. Nice work by Hine, received the hand pass and then gets go. Kick over the top is all right. And he runs onto it. He got it back from Parrish, then through the middle to Caldwell. Out wide, Bryan will have this. 55 from goal. Good build up here by the Bombers. Jonas told to stand. Not a great kick from Bryan. It might just work out though, and it does. Right off the instep. And the man of the moment has it again. Massimo D'Ambrosio.
Well, I thought Wright needed to come at him there, and I think that's what Bryant was waiting for, and I think he wanted them to come at him. He didn't move, and then obviously the crowd got a bit anxious about it, and then I think Bryant was able to read that and kicked it forward. Wanted to go to Wright, but as you said, Ambrosio was able just to take that mark.
Hadn't kicked a goal before this afternoon. Kicked his first 60 seconds ago, and he's turned into a goal kicker. 2 now for Massimo D'Ambrosio. And the Bombers are right back in this. 3-3-21. Plays 4 straight 24, ticking over 25 minutes in this first term on Grandstand AFL. Meanwhile, Sydney making their move. 33 points ahead of the Pies halfway through the third quarter at the SCG.
Sometimes you've got to be in it to win it, Jono, and there's absolutely no chance that kick was meant for Massimo. It was a spray off the inside of the boot, but it goes back to your point before. You put it to a position where the defenders are forced to defend, and good things can happen. They might not happen every time that you spray a kick like that inside forward 50, but you put it to a spot that's really dangerous, and you just hope that one of your forwards can manage to to get on the end of it for the Port Adelaide defenders there. They're a little bit on the back foot, so they need to be a little bit in better position and ask their midfielders to come in and provide some assistance as well.
Point Cook will be pumping after a couple of goals for Massimo D'Ambrosio. Boak slips over in the middle of the ground and caught holding the ball.
And Joel, some beautiful moments on the bench when he came. Every player came over to him, patted him on the back, even the staff and everything as well. So a beautiful moment there that he'll cherish for a long time.
Another product of the mid-season draft. The Bombers have done well out of it when you consider they got Snelling in the first mid-season draft out of West Adelaide, and then they took Durham last year. They got Martin as a pre-season top-up pick. Those supplemental selections have been kind to Essendon. Merritt out wide, sends it to half forward. Farrell floats in to mark his first game back at Docklands since a knee injury last season. They offload to Houston. He's run down, and Dan Houston is taken down by Darcy Parish, who will win a free kick back for the Bombers just in front of halfway.
It's a hospital pass if I've ever seen one.
Parish had high Newton board. Instead, he goes longer inside 50. Stringer from behind, couldn't get near that contest. Meanwhile, Durham, speaking of mid-season draftees, goes across the face of goal with his shot, but another chance nonetheless for the Bombers deep inside forward 50. Another stoppage here from the throw-in. 3 points the margin. Port Adelaide lead after a bright start, but Essendon have steadied well in the back half of this opening term. Thrown back into play. Ball falls short. Good tap again by Draper. Just didn't quite have the runners on the same wavelength as him going past. And Boak's going to be pinned for holding the ball. He hardly had any time there. And I reckon the crowd smartly were onto it. They saw him pinned with hardly any time to start off with, and then perhaps increase their pleading for holding the ball.
Maisie, I reckon you're in trouble when you try and put up the fence. So he grabbed it and tried to put up the fence straight away, and I reckon that's where you get yourself caught undone, is when you go up for the fence trying to handball it or kick it forward. So, and yeah, spot on. Crowd did help.
Dyson Heppel with the free kick. He'll have to kick this from just beyond 50. It'll take his best. In he comes. The skipper goes across the face for one behind. Got a hook on that one. 3-4-22. Plays 4 straight 24. 28 played opening term on Grandstand AFL.
Burton to waltz in from fullback for the Power. Bombers have kicked the last 2 in the game after Port kicked 3 in a row in the middle stages. Houston's got it off half-back, and he's turned it straight over. Durham on the outer side. He's got Langford all alone at the top of the 50 if he can find him. Elects to go longer than that toward Peter Wright. Big stretch as he almost brought it down. Langford through the pack, tried to sidestep. Lost it in the tackle. And now scooting in is Guelphy. The birthday boy's wrapped up. Can't extricate himself, nor the football. And we'll have a ball up inside forward 50 for Essendon.
It's a great contest there by Peter Wright. He came from 3 deep and made a contest, brought it to ground.
Finlayson taps it in the direction of Wines, who got to kick 5 metres forward. Into congestion though. Durham out the back. Spins, kicks high. It'll travel only about 15 metres. Big fist from behind was good from Finlayson. And then Burton might have caught one in the eye. Umpire says play on as he got his hand pass away. Off to Wines. Play. Long kick forward. No mark taken. And Bergman, he can kick long here. Pal Pepper was out the back and he completely missed him. He went backwards instead to Houston, who's turned it over. It's still on. It's going to be a free kick inside attacking 50. So the ball is on halfway at the moment. No, it's going Port Adelaide's way. So Butters with it. Kick over the top is okay to Bonner. He wants to go forward quickly. Inside attacking 50 he goes to Pal Pepper, who's been there for a minute out the back, and he takes the mark.
Yeah, well, just seen a little bit of it behind the play there. Finlayson had actually dealt with Stringer quite heavily, and they
paid Stringer the free kick.
Yep,
then he went over and he stood over Finlayson, and they paid one the other way.
They reversed it, yeah.
And Finlayson's coming off at the moment with pretty much no jumper left. Meanwhile, Pal Pepper to kick the goal from 15 out. Slight angle to the right, and he doesn't make a mistake. Crucial late goal for the Power right on quarter time. 5 straight goals to open proceedings here. Essendon 3-4-22 and an 8-point margin heading into the opening break. D'Ambrosio with 2 for the Bombers. Martin with the other for Port Adelaide. All single goal kickers. Boak, Dixon, Georgiades, Marshall and Pal Pepper on the siren. What a big turnaround that was in the last 60 seconds. So 8 points the margin in favour of the Power here under the roof. Meanwhile, it's a 27-point lead to the Swans at the moment over the Pies. 8:56 plays 4-5-29. So I'll keep you updated on that crucial clash throughout the afternoon. Under the roof here, an 8-point margin for the Power. You're listening to Grandstand AFL on ABC Radio and ABC Sport Digital.
If you're not going through an emergency situation right now, it might be the perfect time to explore the all-new ABC Emergency website. ABC Emergency lets you search for incidents near you, or you can check on other locations around the country. There's also a handy button that lets you listen to the local ABC radio station closest to the emergency. abc.net.au/emergency. Save it in your favourites now and keep listening to ABC Radio, your emergency broadcaster.
The 2022 AFL Premiership season.
Grandstand AFL.
On ABC Radio and ABC Sport Digital.
Finlayson with the opening clearance for the Power. Kicks inside the 50. Dixon the target. Laverty a hand in there. Marshall was brilliant. Knocked it to Boat. Lightning start for the Power.
Draper again wins it down to Shield. He hand passes inside to Martin from 45 directly in front. Swings back late for a goal.
Over the head of Dixon. Laverty leads the race back there. Slapped out of play. Umpire says deliberate.
No.
The free to be taken by Georgiades, who hooks it back superbly. Durham, who can send it back in for the Bombers, draws some support. A lovely step inside. Wonderful move to get inside of Bonner. Finds Shield. Shield on over the top. And D'Ambrosio's got it in the left forward pocket, 40 out. Massimo D'Ambrosio hasn't scored in the big time. Massimo Bellissimo.
What a great kick from Brian. It might just work out though, and it does. Right off the instep. And the man of the moment has it again. Massimo D'Ambrosio. Kicked his first 60 seconds ago, and he's turned into a goal kicker. 2 now.
This is the 2022 AFL Premiership season.
On ABC Radio and ABC Sport Digital.
Port Adelaide 5 straight 30, leading Essendon 3-4-22 at quarter time here on Grandstand AFL. Andrew Mays and Joel Peterson calling it for you. Your experts to run their eye over the first quarter, Kieran Peterson and Chris Johnson.
Both got our marks off, Jono. We've started well, haven't we? Look, it's a fairly even contest, really, in that first quarter. None of the stats really tell the picture of either team, rather, getting any dominance. I mentioned at the beginning of the game for Essendon that last week the thing that probably really let them down was that they only had one tackle inside their forward 50. Well, good news, Essendon fans. They've had 5 times that in the first quarter tonight, or this afternoon. So certainly the pressure has been lifted dramatically, and particularly in the second half of that first quarter for Essendon. Port Adelaide managed to kick a few goals early, and Essendon were able to wrestle it back. That last 30 seconds is a bit of a coach killer. It was a bit chaotic. There was a bit of a melee happening behind the play, and a bit of confusion because Essendon was paid a free kick in front of goal, and then it was reversed. It's not unusual to see Jake Stringer at the bottom of a bit of a scrap, and unfortunately gave away a free kick that I don't think he'll be too concerned about it, John. I reckon he'll just let it roll off his back. But 2 points, would have been 2 points the difference, or potentially Essendon would have gone into the quarter time, 4 points up if he had been able to convert. Instead, it was slingshotted down the ground, and they find themselves 8 points down. So a fairly even contest thus far, and certainly both teams have come out here with a real intent to play well by the looks of it. I think the one thing that's going to separate the teams at the moment is that the first team that's able to control possession, because we mentioned through that quarter that there's a lot of mistakes happening. There's a lot of balls that ended up on the ground that really should have just been controlled possession. So I don't think that way that they were playing in the first quarter is going to be sustainable for the rest of the game. I'm sure at some point it's going to open up, and potentially it's the team that's able to control, particularly off the half-back line, which these teams are both capable of doing.
Yeah, look, I think you're spot on there, Kez. I guess what my eyes are telling me at the moment is that the ball moving forward for Port Adelaide inside their forward 50 is a lot more cleaner, and there's a lot more sort of structure to it. They've had 4 inside forward 50 marks, which they've gone back and kicked 4 goals for. The other goal was the cleanness of Marshall just tapping it in the path of Boak, who then ran into an open goal. So they're actually getting the ball in there and actually taking marks. So that's really good for the Port Adelaide. And then on the other hand, I think for for Essendon, and what my eyes are telling me is their tackling pressure is quite good. They've got a number of free kicks just by chasing the body, hunting the body in packs at the moment, being able to turn the ball over. What they'll need to do is once they get the ball across the half forward line or across into their forward half of the ground, they just need to use the ball a little bit better going forward. But I think in terms of when they've got ball in hand, with the flow and everything, I think Port Adelaide looked the better team. I think the defenders of Essendon are getting caught up the ground, and you caught it a couple of times, Maisie, that even Powell Pepper got out the back a few times, and there was a few other instances as well where we had a few other players getting out the back and they just didn't lift their eyes or raise their eyes a bit, the Port Adelaide Football Club. If they can do that in this next quarter, I think the defence of Essendon are going to have their hands full.
So Port Adelaide 5 goals in that opening term. Essendon 3-4-22. Just an update from the SCG. The Swans 9-9-63, playing Collingwood 4-5-29. 3 minutes left in the third term there at the SCG. So, and a goal to the Pies brings that margin back by 6 points. So, still plenty of work for the Pies to do in the final term there. We'll keep you updated on that throughout the afternoon. Back under the roof here, though, where it is Port Adelaide by 8 points at quarter time. Second quarter begins the same way the first did. Draper won it down. No clearance, though, for the Bombers this time. And it's a free kick to Bonner. So Bonner darts it short to Finlayson. Finlayson, intelligent kick, took a bit off it to centre half forward to Boak. Was looking for the runner going past it. It's Bonner inside 50. Marshall, big collision. And teammates colliding there. Unfortunate for the Power, but Marshall floats out the back anyway and received the kick from Bonner.
Well, Georgiadis and Marshall, they just collided. They both had the option to go for the ball. They just need to have that nous again, Joel, to actually one of them pull out, because one of them would have marked it. But a good return, a good repeat inside forward 50. And that's where Finlayson from that stoppage went lateral, and then Draper went forward, and they were able to send it over to Finlayson, who can use the ball quite good going forward.
Marshall already with one this afternoon, looking for his second. From 35 out, angled to the left. The Deadeye has, unfortunately for Power fans, pushed that across the face for one behind. The first blemish of the afternoon. 5-1-31, plays 3-4-22 after a minute in the second term.
He was very casual coming in, Kaz, to have a shot at that goal. It was just almost like a 9-iron or something. He just chipped it up.
So the Bombers with the footy through Martin. Sends it long down the line through the hands of Wright. Merritt took it cleanly off the pack. Wines was there. Two of the prime movers in the middle for either side. Wines' handball missed Riley Bonner. It'll go out and be thrown back into play. 9 points to margin the way of the Power. A minute and a half gone in the second term. Draper decisively. Parrish on the end of it for the Bombers. Handball forward to Merritt, to Hind. Has to be quick and clean, and was both. Got it to Martin. His handball defensively. Ended up missing Parrish, and Marshall's there to swoop in. Good below his knees. Got it to Wines. Slightly chaotic as he got it to Rosie. To Bonner. Back to Rosie. Loops the handball wide to Burton, who's dragged down by Stringer. Caught holding the ball. Jake pounced on him and takes the free kick from the AFL logo broadcast side.
That might spice things up a bit more between these two. Stringer, lovely delivery to the top of 50. Langford on a strong lead. That showed strong hands too. Oh, Stringer was going past for the handball receive round the back. Instead he goes into the pocket. Right, got his timing all wrong. Probably should have been a free kick to Alir in the end. Umpire wave play on. Rosie there for support. His hook back is dangerous, and McGrath takes the mark. He's 55 from goal. Wheels around, puts it to the hot spot. Low kick, got over everyone. Burgoyne punched towards the boundary line. Alir's there to mop up for the Power. Short kick. Missed his intended target in McEntee, but look at Butters. He burnt his opponent, got past him, and then he found Dixon left half forward.
Vacant paddocks for Port Adelaide to operate in. Dixon chisels it inside the 50. Wobbling ball at the feet of Georgiades. Ridley pushes him off it. Bombers draw support. McGrath gets back there. Handball to Merritt. Now a nervous moment for Ridley. He's calm in a crisis. Goes back to McGrath. Shoots the kick short to Redmond. He can come out to Martin. Stabs the pass in his direction. Martin collects on the half volley. Handball didn't have the juice on it to get to Durham. And his kick over the head of Parrish. Lets Dixon in at half forward for the Power. To Boak. To Burton. Who can thump it. And he's put it off the instep. It's gone all of 15.3 metres and wobbled its way to McEntee. If Nick Bryan was the leading contender for the worst kick that hits a target all season, that one has usurped it by an absolute mile.
That's the worst kick I've ever seen in AFL
barely
football.
hit his boots. Meanwhile, Jed McEntee, he needs to be better in front of goal, and is. He shows them how to do it. Great set shot finish from the Sturt youngster. His second goal of the season. And Port Adelaide back out to a 15-point lead. 4 minutes gone second term. Port 6-1-37. Essendon 3-4-22. Chris Johnson and Kieran Peterson. I would suggest that isn't how Ken Hinkley drew it up at quarter time.
Well, not just that last kick either, but we've been watching this second quarter go for 4.5 minutes, Jono, and I think I can count on one hand the amount of targets that have been hit. You know, really simple handballs and chip kicks that are just not hitting targets or dropping short. And what it's doing is just putting the whole back line from both teams under immense pressure that just it could totally be eliminated if players stopped with the look-away handballs or the really lazy kicks. So, yeah, that kick was... I don't think we'll ever say that again. That was awful. But hopefully for the rest of the quarter we can start to hit some targets.
Draper's had enough, bashes it free of the centre square, then got forward, couldn't get a toe to it. Nice pressure by Finlayson. Hand pass comes to Wines, who's over halfway, kicks inside 50, over the head of Dixon. Probably should have been in the back. Umpire gave him absolutely nothing. McAdee onto it. He's caught in a tackle. Umpire said no prior. I'll have it. Left forward pocket for Port Adelaide.
Unlucky Dixon there. Laverty just comes straight through and bowled him over, pretty much.
Draper palms it down nicely. Laverty, though, he's dumped. Ball spills free. Dixon to Rosie. One-handed hand pass, and that'll be holding the ball.
That's where they've been really good, Essendon. Their tackling pressure has been good, and I think Shield at the moment, he's up to a fair few tackles. I think he's leading the stats at the moment. I think he's up to about 5 now for the game. So he's leading that really well. They need to lift around him as well.
Of course, the acid was put on them really early in the season around that. Long clearing kick for the Bombers from Ridley. Floated out toward Finlayson, who pumps it back inside the arc. Georgiades such a high flyer, couldn't reel it in. Durham on hands and knee, or on the ground level inside the defensive 50. Merritt's kick dangerous. Burne-Jones had a sniff for a moment. Martin went off the ground. Port with numbers. Marshall, handball to Burne-Jones. He's got options in field. Finds Butters by hand. Butters just forward of the AFL logo. He swings it back into the centre of the ground to his skipper in Jonas. Now to Aliir, who kicks inside the 50. Lovely delivery onto the chest of Dersma. Marks 45 out. 30-degree angle left of centre.
Yeah, good shift from one side of the ground to the other. And Butters at the moment, to me, Maisie, you called it earlier, he just looks faster than everyone else at the moment. He's getting the ball and he's actually putting the burners on straight away, which allowed him to get away from the contest, switch the ball up and then go out the fat side.
He's had horribly interrupted years, Xavier Dersma. Hasn't played more than 3 consecutive games at any stage this season. Playing his 3rd in a row today. Just 9 on the campaign so far, 4 goals, 1, and he elects to give it off to his fellow draftee back in 2018, Connor Rosie, who is having a terrific season. Missed one in the opening term for number 17 on the campaign. Rosie's a classy finisher. And he shows all his wares with that set shot, hooking it round the body for a 7th goal for Port Adelaide and a game-high 21-point lead to the Power. 7-1-43 to Essendon 3-4-22. 7 minutes gone, second term.
Well, we see again, they're really poor checking by the Essendon defenders. You've got Dersma lining up and the Essendon defenders just went to sleep, and it's not a great option for the defenders to go to sleep. If you've got someone who's lining up from outside 50, there's always going to be a good team's going to have little darting forward leads that if one opens up like it did then for Rosie, they're just going to chip it around and make it really easy for himself. So again, poor defending, checking by the Essendon defenders, and a couple of minutes before that goal was lined up, we see again a mistake or a turnover from the Essendon defenders, and it just puts themselves under so much pressure.
The power by 21. Crucial stage now for the Bombers to keep in touch. They might do as well through Stringer. Fashions a kick inside 50. Good contest. Shield front and centre. Went back into congestion with his hand pass. It was knocked away. Now a chance for Finlayson, who pulls the kick nicely again into the middle. Boak takes it off to Farrell. Was looking to draw the opponent. And then ran straight into his opponent. And now it's Port Adelaide who are able to gather the loose ball. Bergman darts inside to Wines, hooks around, plenty of space inside their forward line. And taking it easily is Georgiades, another hit-up lead.
Fantastic kick there again. It's that speed of ball. When you get it on that half-forward line, that's the time to slingshot it. And, I mean, Ollie Wines is a terrific player, we all know that, but the way that Georgiades led again with some conviction, it just makes it a really obvious option to the ball carrier, and well-weighted kick, terrific lead.
Back in the team this afternoon, Mitch Georgiades should deliver here. Dead in front, 35 out from goal. He keeps it low and keeps it straight. He's got a couple. Port Adelaide have 8. 3 goals to open this second term. 3-4-22 the Bombers, 8-1-49 Port Adelaide. And this has got a few alarm bells ringing for Bombers fans. Your experts on Grandstand AFL this afternoon, Chris Johnson and Kieran Peterson.
Well, they had a couple of different opportunities there. The ball was smothered by Redmond, and they still didn't get numbers back. And we had Birdman and Wines who got on the other side of the Essendon defence, and that whole fat side was open, and they couldn't raffle it off. Marshall was heading in there, and I think Rosie was heading in there as well. Georgiades just had the speed up more than anyone else, but that was a lovely kick. That, if you want to look at weighted kicks and rate them, that was the perfect weighted kick for his forward to run into.
Straight into the slot, and Georgiades just had to accept it onto his chest. Brian and Finlayson go up in the middle. Houston had it, lost it in the tackle from Shield. Martin tried to spin his way through, got caught holding the ball.
They've got to do something here, Essendon, at the moment. This is really going to turn ugly real quick. The Port Adelaide Football Club are all over them at the moment with their tackling pressure and even their ball movement.
Pies have got it back to 23 at three-quarter time. They could they?
It's the cardiac kids of Collingwood going again as Marshall kicks inside the 50 over the head of Dixon. Georgiades left the door open for Dersma, who comes busting through, hands it off to Drew Power with another. 5 in a row for Port Adelaide either side of quarter time. And they've blown it open here in the second term. Out to 33 points, 9-1-55 the Power. Essendon marooned on 3-4-22. Willem Drews in on the act with his first.
You called it very well, Jono. If it wasn't danger signs already, the alarm bells are absolutely going off in the Essendon coach's box. If you were the coach of Essendon, what would you be doing right now? What levers would you be pulling to stop this onslaught?
Well, what you got to do, obviously, you got to win at the source, and we spoke about it in the pre-game that they're getting the ball, they're winning the taps at the moment. They're up against a second-hand ruckman, or 2 second-hand ruckman, if you want to call it that. Win it there, get it forward, over handballing at the moment, I think, for Essendon, and they're turning the ball over by hand. They've got to get it out of the area and get it inside their forward quick enough.
Brian down to Caldwell. This is better for the Bombers. Hand pass, defensive side of the stoppage to Merritt, who kicks inside 50. No mark taken. Burgoyne there for the Power to Butters. His hand pass is knocked down. Good attack on the footy. Oh, it's going to be in the back to Butters. I reckon he's keeping his hands firmly behind his back there, so he doesn't let on that he's very disappointed with that decision.
Doesn't need to. They chucked that rule out long ago.
True.
He's forgotten.
Butters with the free kick. Flares it across half back to Jonas. Jonas short. His pass is okay. McEntee.
And I reckon they've got to fold some wingers back, Kez, because at the moment there's just far too much space in their forward 50 for Port Adelaide. I think Essendon have got to fold their wingers back at some stage.
Fairly straight kick. Inside 50. No one got there. Bounced through everyone. Dixon out the back. Gets the ball. Fires a 25-metre hand pass backwards to a man under pressure. Just getting it away was Farrell. Probably should have been holding the ball. Bombers fans not happy. Rosie onto it now. Hand passes centrally. Burton can go inside 50. This delivery's a little better. It'll land in front of Georgiades, who takes it on the bounce. Hand pass looking for Bonner, and it goes out of bounds. About 55 from the Power goal.
The kick wasn't great, and there was still space there as well for forwards to lead into. There's just a lot of space at the moment. The Essendon defence are a bit under pressure.
Ball to be tossed back in. Pal Pepper and Bryan. Pal Pepper works Bryan underneath the ball. Handball went looking for Butters. Cut off by Merritt. Pal Pepper burrows his way through the pack. Handball back to Butters. Hooks it back inside the boundary, but the ball was over before that bright green boot connected with it. So it'll be tossed back in at the junction of the 50 and the boundary. Sam Stagg will do his finest work and fling it back into play. A little bit shallow at both rucks, and Pal Pepper got the hit out by his boot as he threw a boot at it. Lucky maybe not to be kicking in danger, and they've come up with a free kick the Power to Rosie, who was held by Caldwell. Rosie hands off to Houston, chisels a kick to the top of the goal square. Great Mark Laverty read it beautifully in flight, and he's able to provide some safety for the Dons. Power by 33 points, 5 goals in a row in the match, 14 gone second term.
Throws his right arm in to signal, settle things down, although he turns it over by foot. Aliria takes the mark. He goes back inboard to Rosie. Rosie all the way back to Burton behind halfway inside the centre square. Every player on the ground in front of him, so he kicks wide to the wing. Farrell has it. Short pass at the feet of Pal Pepper. He'll go long, and he does. He turns, he fires, and he finds Dixon. Couldn't quite bring it down. Had to become the tackler in the end. Be disappointed with that one, Charlie. Had most of it. Couldn't complete the mark. Stoppage. Ball up 30 out directly in front.
Port plus 42 disposals, plus 9 tackles, plus 8 inside 50s in this quarter alone. Drew takes it off the pack. Handball to Georgiades, to Rosie. High up and under inside the forward 50. Heppel goes upstairs. Can't pull it in. Dixon handball to Bonner. Away to Pal Pepper. Nice finish. Pushed off balance does he kick. Pal Pepper kicks another. Port with 6 on the bounce. 10-1-61 the Power. Essendon 3-4-22. 15 minutes gone in the second term. And this is really getting out of hand for the Bombers.
Well, they're just struggling just to get their hands on it at the moment, Essendon. Like, that was a defensive stoppage that normally you'd weighted your numbers in that defensive stoppage, but it was able to go up, and Dixon just with a real good handball out, and geez, Pal Pepper only had seconds to sort of weigh up the scenario to put that on his boot, but he's been pretty good. He's kicked the 2 goals so far. He's been presenting up the ground at the same time and still going back and getting front and square at various different times. Took a mark inside forward 50 early in the first quarter. He's certainly been a shining light for him this year up forward.
39 points the margin. The Power, very early, could land a knockout blow here. Dixon from the middle, hand pass to Boak. Just went off the ground to get it inside 50. Chaos ball at ground level. Redmond did well enough to track it. He sees it towards the boundary line, then kept it in inexplicably. Trying to shrug the tackles, Pal Pepper to McEntee. Now to Rosie. Party tricks. Not quite. It's set up. Dirk Thatcher saved the day. Then he's a bit indecisive as to where to go. Went long instead. And that's a good mark taken by Durham on the outer side. Crucial defensive grab. Well, D'Ambrosio it is rather, who gets to his feet. Defensive 50 for the Bombers.
Off the hook there, the Bombers. Rosie could have ran that all the way into the goal square, just trying to put one on his highlight reels, I think.
Wouldn't have made Jason Dunstall very happy, that kick, as D'Ambrosio kicks long down the line. Right, the target, flicked on by Bryan. Nice handball out from Perkins. Fighting for it is Martin. Puts it back into congestion. Right, kick down the line when about 30 centimetres off the ground and 7 metres along. Bergen was paid the mark, then he dropped it before he hit his boot. He kicked down the line, looking for Farrell. Aim on a handball forward, got it back to Farrell. Somehow no free kick in that, didn't go out of bounds. Farrell finds Dixon at the junction of the 50 in the boundary. Charlie's 48 from home, out at left half forward. Will he go back and have a shot? He points to the goals, but with no great conviction.
Well, he needs to now, because he had 2 or 3 teammates running inside forward 50 that he elected not to hit, so he needs to go back and kick this.
Let's see what Big Chaz can do. He'll strike it from the paint of the 50, tight to the boundary line, sends it on its way. Draper gets upstairs and thumps it into the steel on the right-hand side for a minus score. Margin 40 points, game high the way of the Power, 18 gone, second term.
Quick kick in, finds Heppel, left half back. Meanwhile, it's the Swans by 28 at the SCG. About a quarter of the way through the final term. Ridley has it now. Flares it to right half back. Laverty with a long kick, and it's going to be another turnover, although Butters went up a little bit early, then spilt the mark on the way down. Chance for Kelly. He's mobbed, dispossessed. Boak. Short, dainty pass is okay to find aim on. Now to Powell Pepper from 55. Goes high. It's going to go over the head of McEntee, who couldn't compete in the end. And then it's over in the right forward pocket here for the Power.
Just wasteful there by Powell Pepper. He had a couple of plays there, was going for a shot more than anything else, I think. But he could have just weighted it to the space. They had plenty of opportunities there.
40-point lead to Port, and another chance here. They've kicked the last 6 of the game. Marshall wins it down. Georgiades handball forward. Butters through the pack. Goal square vacant. Bounces it home. 7 in a row for the Power. This is an absolute blitz from Port Adelaide in this second term. Already their best first half of the season, and we're not even in time on in the second quarter. 11-2-68 Port Adelaide. Essendon 3-4-22, haven't scored in this term. Karen Peterson and Chris Johnson, they don't really look like it.
Well, not if they're going to continue to play defence like witches' hats, Jono. They're just standing there. I mean, any player in the competition knows that if you've got a defensive 50 stoppage, that you can't allow daylight between you and your opponent. And the other thing that you can't allow is that if someone's going to run through the stoppage, they can't go unopposed. And, I mean, Butters looked like he just had an absolute paddock for himself to work in there. So the thing with mistakes during games, we know that they happen, and mistakes is just part of the game, but you can't let one mistake turn into 2, turn into 3 mistakes in a row. And we've seen 7 goals in a row just on the back of Essendon, really poor defensive checking and mistakes.
Chance here for a clearance. Draper had a fumble at the last moment, which cost him. Now the Power onto it. Butters again.
He's looking quick, isn't he?
Yeah, he just got out of that congested situation so easily by hitting the accelerator, then hit the pass as well to Burton inside 50, and he misses his target. McGrath chiming in for it for the Bombers. Out wide to Martin, and he sets a bit of a task here for Guelph. He gave him no chance, and he cops a spray as well. Great mark, though, by Burgoyne, floating in over the top.
And Peter would be proud of that one, Jono.
Yeah, look, I know that Jace has been taking some really good marks in the Sandful before he's been selected in his side. And look, that's one aspect of his game. He's very good overhead. And we've seen him, he's a smooth mover like Dad,
yes.
Uncle, and everyone else that's related to him as well. So we get to see that use of his ball yet.
Given through marriage with the Phillips connection as well. They're all from good stock. As long kick up the line, Powell Pepper put her in front of Georgiades. Stringer takes it. He's working defensively now. Merritt back to Stringer, has to get rid of it. Handball to Ridley, closed down by McEntee, in trouble. Oh, he was almost in real trouble. Umpire put the whistle to the mouth and then allowed things to move on. And the Bombers come away with it through Caldwell on the back edge of the square. They trail by 46.
Attacking kick is okay into the middle. He finds Parrish, who wants to go quickly. His kick's a shocker. Hamstring tested there for Shield, who had to get down. Got it away to Martin. He's dispossessed. Pressure's too hot here for the Bombers at the moment. Burton now with it for the Power. Flares it inside. Does it sit for Bergman? It does. He just gets it as far as he can on the boot because he saw McAtee out the back. Draper tracking back did beautifully. Tapped it to the advantage of Zerk Thatcher. Kick over the top is okay, and we'll find Kelly right half back for the Bombers.
Well, I spoke about it in the first 5 minutes, Kaz, about urgency, and Essendon got the ball there. They just get him. They're not even quick to get back off the mark to see what the options are available. They're just happy to hold the ball up and hold the ball up.
This is the Essendon of the first handful of rounds of the season. And there's a lot of ball watching going on out there at the moment. Burn-Jones across half-back to Amon. But he puts it out in front of Drew. Draper got a hand to it. Drew will lead the race to the ball. Redmond catching up with him, getting in front. Paddled it defensively. Ridley was there in support. He's wrapped up by McEntee. And a ball up. They've been useless without the footy here in this second term, Essendon. Beaten hopelessly, haven't scored. Port Adelaide have kicked 6 goals. Dixon takes it out of the ruck, flares the handball wide for Bonner. He's got some tricks, comes in board to Amon, off a step, 45, curls it home, Port with another. This is outrageous from Port Adelaide, and it's egregious from Essendon. 12 goals to the Power, 7 in the term. The Bombers haven't scored, 23 gone in the second quarter. The margin is 52.
Well, that was a 4v7 stoppage out of that forward stoppage. Numbers heavily weighted in Essendon's favour, and Dixon was able just to walk through the front door, sweep a handball about 20 metres, and then from the stoppage, the defensive stoppage, Amon able to come through, follow up the handball, and just off one step around his body. That was just superb. They're on tonight, Port Adelaide. They can do whatever they like because the defensive pressure at the moment, or the ability to actually close space down at the moment, it's non-existent from Essendon.
They could just about get on the flight home, I reckon, Jono.
They could do, for sure. It's the contest isn't here at the moment. They'll need to reassess. I know we've only got 4 minutes left in this half, but they'll need to reassess and try and get something going their way.
Maybe this man can do it. D'Ambrosio takes the mark, 50 from goal, into the pocket, looking for Guelphy, went to ground, no free kick. Umpire says play on. Aliir there was able to gather, saw an option, it was Bonner, punched away from him, who goes again. Bonner spun around in the tackle, holding the ball.
Well, they've had at least about half a dozen players have one possession. Hind, Heppel, Perkins, Wright, Dempster and Langford in this quarter.
Caldwell to the hot spot. Where are the Flyers? Wright got a run at it, spoiled though. Finlayson there, and he just marches through a couple of tackles all the time in the world. Wasn't the greatest kick. Drew took the mark though on his chest. Kicks out wide. Left back pocket to Boak, who pokes the pass over the top. Mark taken by Bonner at left half back.
Port have had 53 more disposals in the term, 19 inside 50s to 6. And it has been an obliteration here in this quarter. Essendon haven't scored since the 28-minute mark of the first quarter. Port Adelaide have kicked 7 goals, 2 here in the second.
And just on the contested possessions, Joel, 35 to 22, so heavily weighted in Port's favour as well.
And the clearance is 9 to 5, despite the hitouts being 10 to 1 Essendon. So the Port midfield making the most of a bad situation there. Ridley's got a free kick across half back for the Bombers. Right 2 hands to it. He had 9/10 but couldn't pull it in. And a ball up on the wing. Dominant second term from Port Adelaide. Margin is 52 points, 26 gone in the second quarter on Grandstand AFL.
Swans by 34 over the Pies, halfway through the last term at the SCG as well. Burn-Jones just poked it to the advantage of Wines. It was smart play, not taking possession. Wines decked after his kick, so he'll receive a free kick, or rather Georgiades will downfield. Has a runner going past, it's Dersma, who then kicks to the hot spot. Numbers again with the power, although Essendon able to scramble in defence. Kelly, did he get rid of that correctly? Only just. Redmond now, hand pass inboard is okay to Caldwell. Comes out wide, does it stay in? It does, just for Perkins. Let's head downstairs, Lauren Borden.
A bit of a concern for Todd Marshall at the moment. He's had to go down to the rooms. He was grimacing in pain. It was an issue with his right ankle, so he's got a few problems down with 3 medical staff at the moment.
Not good to see, Loz. We'll keep an eye on him as Perkins sends it long up the line. Stringer takes it off the pack. An uncharacteristic fumble from Merritt. Well, in the context of his season, but not in the day for the Bombers. Stringer wobbles an absolute shank inside the 50. Might work out. D'Ambrosio, brilliant hands to Langford to break the drought for the Bombers. No. Or kind of. It breaks the scoring drought, but not the goal drought. 3-5-23, Essendon. Their first score of the term comes at the 27-minute mark. Meanwhile, Port Adelaide have kicked 7 goals, 2 at the other end, and they lead by 51.
Their last score, the 28-minute mark of the opening term. Farrell, a long kick out of defence. Almost gets it to halfway. Good rise over the top by Ridley to take a nice contested mark. Georgiades in his way. Just tempting the umpire to make a decision.
He needs to go here.
Kicks out wide to Durham, who didn't want to go. With the hand pass instead to Parrish, who kicks to the hot spot. Peter Wright, the flyer. Wines read it beautifully. Hand pass back to Finlayson, who just says, let's get it out of here, but it might be coming straight back. Redmond tracking back, takes the mark on his chest. Short kick is okay to McGrath. He'll look to hand pass to Redmond. Goes himself, kick half smothered. Butters parries it down to the advantage of Rosie. He turns it over though. Big tackle on Langford by Butters. Ball going nowhere, locked up at the top of attacking 50 for the Bombers.
Just for listeners out there, Drummond took the mark 70 metres out from goal. He had no one within 30 metres in front of him and just hesitated to take off.
Didn't really know what to do with it. Stringer at the stoppage, busts through. High left foot kick. Alia's down in back play, getting some medical attention. Almost landed on his head. Fresh area from McEntee through the contest. Butters flicked it over his head, the handball, and found Dersma in space. Now to Houston, another easy exit. They waltz it out, Port Adelaide, yet again.
Gee, that was a clever kick. He had absolutely nothing going forward for him. He had to hook it and weight it beautifully, and Boak was just able to run onto it, arms outstretched.
So Boak now to Wines down the line. It's all Essendon. Oh, Laverty's dropped an absolute soda, and if that doesn't sum things up, nothing does. An awful second term from Essendon. Quite frankly, as bad as you'll see, Port Adelaide was brilliant, made all the running, and the Bombers added just a behind. And in the case of Mason Redmond, they can't even make his way back to his feet, just standing hunched over at half-time, not quite able to believe what he saw in that second term. A quarter in which Port Adelaide outscored Essendon massively by 41 points. The Bombers adding one behind. Port Adelaide adding 7 goals too. At half-time, it's the Power 12-74 to Essendon 3-5-23. All goals in the first quarter for the Bombers. Massimo D'Ambrosio with his first 2 goals at the AFL level, along with Nick Martin. For the Power, 2 to Powell Pepper, 2 to Georgiades, singles to McEntee, Drew, Dixon, Rosie, Butters, Amon, Boak, and to Todd Marshall.
Andrew McGrath gathering the Bombers at the top of 50, getting stuck right into them as well, trying to rally the troops for something in this second half. That was, as Joel mentioned, almost as bad as it gets. Chris Johnson and Kieran Peterson sum up that second term for us, where Port Adelaide absolutely put Essendon to the sword.
Well, Port Adelaide were just too good. They were clean. They spread from the contest. They worked harder. Kez, you made mention about Boak's ability to take that ball in that space, but it was the fact that he identified straight away that they were going to win the ball and actually just really gut run and actually got himself into that space where I see Essendon winning the contest at the source at various different times, and they're just sluggish to spread. It's a bit concerning. Their ball use by hand and by foot is below par, below standards at the moment, but for Port Adelaide, their ability to hit targets, the run and carry, and I think Butters is leading that. He's actually got a bit of turn to speed on every time he gets the ball at the moment, and I really like the way Port Adelaide doing it. And their forward entries are very, very nice. They're going to fat sides. They're going to, players leading straight up at them as well at the same time. So at the moment, Port Adelaide are just getting their hands on the ball more often and using it better and making better decisions with it.
Yeah, look, they certainly are, and let's not take anything away from Port Adelaide because they were absolutely fantastic in that quarter, but Essendon were absolutely dismal. Essendon fans here are hoping to come here and I guess be excited about what their team's going to start to build and produce for what's going to be a big pre-season for them and obviously season 2023. And I'm sure if they were sitting there tonight, they couldn't be more disappointed with the way that their team was didn't respond rather after that first quarter. And I think the most concerning thing, if I was an Essendon supporter, is the way that the body language is of their team. As that halftime siren went, you looked around and you could probably count on one hand the amount of players that were up and moving. The rest of them had their hands on their heads or their hands on their knees and look utterly defeated. So that's not great signs. The good news is though that they can go to half time and they can reset. Some of the numbers are not really going well for them at the moment, and it needs to be cleaned up around the stoppages. They're winning the hit-outs 25-5, so it's been absolutely dominant, but they're not converting that into clearances. They're actually losing the clearances by 2 around the ground. So when they have such dominance in one area, they need to be able to capitalise, and that'd be some areas I'm sure that they'll talk about at halftime. If you have that much first access to the pill around the stoppages, you have to make something of that. You can't allow the opposition, which Port Adelaide's doing a great job at the moment, of sharking off the opposition ruckman, basically meaning that the Port Adelaide midfielders know that they're not going to win the hit out, so they're preparing for Essendon ruckman to win it and getting clean possession. So that's an area that straight off the bat that they're going to be able to tidy up. But certainly questions need to be asked of particularly the senior players for Essendon. You mentioned that most of them aren't getting their hands on the pill and being able to do much with it. You've got Parrish leading, who's had 16 touches, but really hasn't been overly efficient with his ball use. He's probably just collecting some stats. And McGrath's had 13 touches, but he's made some pretty crucial errors off the half back line, so he hasn't been helping them. But you look down the line, and Guelphy's had 3 kicks, and Archie Perkins has had 3 kicks. Peter Wright's had no influence in the game. So it's these sort of guys that really need to start to step up and have some sort of impact for Essendon to get back on top. But let's not take anything away from Port Adelaide, because they were absolutely fantastic through that second quarter.
So 32 tackles to 28, Port Adelaide leading. That is, if there's one thing I'm sure the coaching staff will be harping on about at half-time, that's probably it, Jono. I mean, that's shocking.
Well, Essendon were very good in the first quarter. So if they weren't as good in the first quarter, that stat there would look just as bad. It was 11-16 in the first quarter, but I thought they were actually the times when they laid tackles was when Port Adelaide were getting away and they were able to keep it in their forward line. But the big key factor, across it all is the supply in the forward line. 2 to 10 marks inside forward 50 in favour of Port Adelaide. In terms of going forward, 9 shots from the 23 inside forward 50s Essendon, going at 39%. Port Adelaide, 16 shots from 31 inside forward entries, going at 52%. So just a little bit over than going in, scoring each time, every second time they go in. So if they can't rectify the marks inside forward 50, which then puts the defenders under pressure, and actually generate shots when you go inside forward 50. On the other hand, for Essendon, when they go inside forward 50, they can't generate anything. They are getting numbers back, and it's the slow ball movement. When I spoke around Durham, Sam Durran, he had the ball 70 metres out and there was no one between him and the 50-metre line. He could have ran and just taken grass straight away and drove that ball into the top of the goal square and actually forced the Port Adelaide defenders to defend. But no, he wanted to wait. He waited for someone to come man the mark. Then he had to go back off the mark, and then he only launched the ball into about 45 to 40 metres out from goal. It's just, at the moment, I think they're programmed to not to play on quick and take the game on at the minute, Essendon, which they need to, especially if they're centre forward in their forward part of the ground. I think they've got to take the game on and get that ball one-on-one. I think we had a genuine one-on-one contest deep forward with Lear and Peter Wright at the moment. It's just been so slow in getting out there. Then the other thing, they need to get Stringer into the game somehow. We know what he can do. We know he's a match winner. I think he needs to stand up. Dyson Heppel as well, I think at the moment, hasn't had a great night. And that quarter then he went very, very quiet as well. But, you've got to look towards your leaders now. And they're the leaders. Those two boys there are the leaders of the football club. Even though, Parrish and Merritt, they'll get a number of possessions around the ground. But I think in terms of big bodies at the moment, I think you've got to get Stringer in the middle, and I reckon you've got to get Heppel in there as well.
The thoughts of Chris Johnson and Kieran Peterson on Grandstand AFL. Port Adelaide 12-2-74 leading Essendon 3-5-23 at halftime. Meanwhile, up at the SCG, a 33-point advantage in favour of the Swans with a couple of minutes left to play. So Collingwood's streak will be over, and that'll set up a massive round 23 clash against the Blues at the MCG next week. So we've got plenty to talk about post-match here on Grandstand AFL. Before we get there, though, the second half on the other side of the ABC News.
Hello, this is ABC News with David Rowlands. ACT police have revealed that a gunman fired 5 rounds inside the terminal at the Canberra airport this afternoon prior to being arrested. The shots were fired at around 1:30 this afternoon, leading to the evacuation of passengers and others in the terminal. Some people were stuck on planes on the tarmac while the situation was brought under control. Acting Superintendent Dave Kraft gave a graphic account of the incident.
This afternoon at approximately 1:30, a male has entered Canberra Airport in the departures area. He is sat in one of the areas adjacent to the glass windows. After approximately 5 minutes, this male has removed a firearm from his possession and let off approximately 5 rounds.
The airport is encouraging anyone with flights booked to keep an eye on social media for updates. It's understood some passengers who had been stranded on aircraft on the tarmac are beginning to be escorted to the terminal. New South Wales police say a fatal targeted shooting in Sydney southwest doesn't appear to be linked to an ongoing gangland conflict. 2 women aged 48 and 39 were killed when the car they were in was sprayed by bullets in Revesby around 9 o'clock last night. Police have revealed the older woman was known to them. Homicide Squad Commander Danny Doherty says they're following all leads.
Whether it's organised crime links or not, that's part of the investigation we're looking at. There's no evidence that suggests any links to the current conflict that we've had. So we're treating this on its own merits, and the motive of that is still unclear.
Author Salman Rushdie has been taken off a ventilator and is able to talk again a day after being stabbed at a literary event in the US. The 75-year-old Indian-born writer was attacked at an event in New York State and was initially reported in a critical condition. His agent, Andrew Wiley, has confirmed the latest health update to US media. The author has faced years of death threats for his 1988 novel, The Satanic Verses, which some Muslims see as blasphemous. A 24-year-old man charged over the attack has pleaded not guilty to attempted murder and has been remanded in custody without bail. Australia's permanent migration intake could lift by tens of thousands a year. Business groups have been calling for the change, saying an increase to 200,000 places is needed to address significant labour shortages. Skills Minister Brendan O'Connor agrees that some employers are struggling to find the right skilled workers to fill positions, and he says all options are on the table.
Investment in the Australian workforce is our number one priority, but we also have to obviously look at areas of acute demand and give opportunities for the temporary and permanent skilled migration paths also.
The state opposition has pointed to capacity issues in Western Australian hospitals to explain the number of code yellows declared over the last 12 months. Metropolitan hospitals have issued more than 500 code yellows in the past year, which signals an internal emergency affecting the hospital service. A spokesperson for the Health Minister, Amber Jade Sanderson, says the government is continuing to increase the bed count across the state. However, opposition health spokesperson Libby Mettam says it's not enough.
It's inexcusable that only late last year this government were making an 11th hour commitment for an additional 530 beds across the health system, which is still being rolled out.
More than 20 fire crews have been battling a large blaze at Newcastle in the New South Wales Hunter region. The fire broke out at a scrap metal yard just before midday. Firefighters are concerned about a number of gas cylinders stored on the site. A US-based rights group says a terrorism court in Saudi Arabia has jailed a women's rights activist for 34 years over comments she posted on Twitter calling for reform. The Freedom Initiative says Salma al-Shahab's sentence is the longest given to a women's rights advocate in the kingdom. Bethany al-Hadari from the Freedom Initiative says it's a hugely concerning development.
What she calls for is very brave and just for basic rights. It's nothing aggressive, and it's so sad that this has happened to her now. Saudi Arabia is boasting to the world that they're improving women's rights and implementing legal reforms, but there is no question with this sentence that the situation is just getting worse.
ABC News.
Hello, I'm Patrick Stack, and if you like great stories and you enjoy sport, then I reckon you need ABC Sport Daily in your life.
$135,000 in 20 years, but some years are much more financially deplorable for Ricky than others.
They call it the fittest city on earth for this week.
It's a massive story, Patrick, but it doesn't sound like one, does it? I mean, for God's sake, we're talking about the BBL, we're not talking about sheep stations.
It's a daily sports conversation, and it's called ABC Sport Daily. Find us on the Listen app.
To watch the latest stories from ABC News and clips from our current affairs shows online, it's time to go direct to the source. Australia's most reliable news can be found on ABC Radio, the ABC News app and the ABC News website. Download the free app now and stay across local breaking stories, updates and analysis from Australia's most trusted news. What matters to you matters to us, and it's all on the ABC News app and news.abc.net.au.
The 2022 AFL Premiership season.
Grandstand AFL on ABC Radio and ABC Sport Digital.
Boat to Burton, who can thump it. And he's put it off the instep. It's gone all of 15.3 metres and wobbled its way to McEntee. He needs to be better in front of goal, and is. Xavier Dersman, he elects to give it off to his fellow draftee back in 2018, Connor Rosie. For number 17 on the campaign, Rosie's a classy finisher.
Wines, hooks around, plenty of space inside their forward line. Taking it easily is Georgiades, another hit-up lead. Keeps it low and keeps it straight.
Rosie high up and under inside the forward 50. Heppel goes upstairs, can't pull it in. Dixon handball to Bonner. Away to Pal Pepper. Nice finish. Pushed off balance, does he kick? Pal Pepper kicks another. Port with 6 on the bounce. Bonner, he's got some tricks. Comes in board to Amon. Off a step, 45. Curls it home. Port with another. This is outrageous from Port Adelaide. And it's egregious from Essendon.
This is the 2022 AFL Premiership season.
On ABC Radio and ABC Sport Digital.
Welcome back to the Docklands. Andrew Mays and Joel Peterson calling the action for you this afternoon. Karen Peterson and Chris Johnson, your experts. Lauren Borden on the boundary for us. Port Adelaide at halftime here under the roof. 12-74. Leading Essendon 3-5-23. An absolute demolition job. 7 goals to nothing in that second term to open up a 51-point half-time advantage. Before we left you, for the newsroom, Sydney have confirmed their victory over Collingwood. The final score there at the SCG, 11-11-77, the Swans, to the Pies, 7-8-50. So their streak comes to an end at 11. Goal kickers for the Swans, 3 to Franklin, 2 to Heaney and 2 to Papley. They are the multiple goal kickers, all single goal kickers for the Pies. So they will drop a couple of places down to 5th and sit just outside the top 4 heading into the final round next week. So the top 8 as it stands, Geelong, Sydney, Melbourne, Brisbane, Collingwood, Fremantle, Richmond, Carlton, and the Western Bulldogs and St Kilda, the only other 2 teams that can make it. Realistically, the Saints won't be with their percentage difference, so it's just down to the Dogs to decide whether it will be them or Carlton to take up 8th spot on the ladder. Plenty of chat about that after the game here at the Docklands. As I mentioned, that result earlier today, it was Richmond pretty easily in the end over Hawthorn. The final score at the MCG, 28-128 to the Hawks, 9-13-67. So a comfortable victory there for the Tigers. Tom Lynch on absolute fire throughout the game with 8 goals. Multiple goal kickers for the Tigers also included Cumberland, Rioli, Edwards and Prestia with 2 apiece. So definitely sharing the goals around there at Tigerland with plenty of confidence heading towards the last round next week. A bit of the other action from around the grounds as well in the NRL. Earlier today, Canberra beat St George Illawarra 24 points to 22. And it's just gone full time at the Gold Coast where the Titans have beaten Manly 44 points to 24. So the top 8 there, Penrith, North Queensland, Cronulla, Melbourne, South Sydney, Brisbane, Parramatta and the Roosters, but still plenty to play out. Canberra, the likely jumpers there, with a chance to get back inside the top 8 over the coming weeks in the NRL. Bit of rugby union overnight with the Wallabies in action. They went down. It was a pretty heavy defeat in the end to Argentina. After coming off the win last week, they're a little disappointing, 48 points to 17 at full time there in the Rugby Championship. So a disappointing result. They'll play South Africa back in Australia on the 27th of August. So still a little bit to play out there in the international season. Some news coming through in the AFLW arena where the Hawthorn Essendon game will be moved to the Docklands. I did enjoy Brett Spriggs' tweet where he said the ABC networks will be referring it to Do It for Docklands rather than move it to Marvel,
Yes.
but we'll be here under the roof of that round one clash, so that will be very exciting.
Essendon winners in the practice match over Port Adelaide yesterday, so the other winners in pracky matches in the AFLW across the weekend were Brisbane, Fremantle, North Melbourne beat the reigning premiers Adelaide, GWS by a point over the Bulldogs, Geelong thumped the Gold Coast, Collingwood beat Sydney convincingly, Melbourne defeated Carlton, and then today Richmond easily defeated Hawthorn. So two of those new clubs. Port Adelaide's first home game, of course, round 2, they've got the Dogs at Alberton. They head to West Coast in round 1.
The other footy news, unfortunately, Keziah Pickett, subject of more racial abuse online. So it's an all too common trend. It's I don't know how to stop it. It's clearly something that the AFL are doing their best to iron out, but beggars belief. Absolutely beggars belief.
I've got an idea. Just why can't the government step in and get a blanket social media policy across the whole country? No sort of anonymous accounts or anything like that you can actually be sort of subject to suspension on your social media, and that'll quickly stop this. I think the government needs to stand in. I spoke to on the Matt Preston show and Catherine Murphy show on Saturday morning in around this one issue that we had Kalamarchi through the week as well, being racial vilified through social media. So again, it rears its head. Something needs to be done about it. I don't think it's an AFL responsibility. It's a government responsibility, I feel. Yeah, we'll have a bit more of a discussion about that post-match. A big welcome to our audience who have just joined us from Sydney and Collingwood. It has been an absolute domination here under the roof with Port Adelaide 12-2-74 leading Essendon 3-5-23. Andrew Mays and Joel Peterson calling the action for you alongside us in the experts chair this afternoon. Kieran Peterson and also Chris Johnson as the Bombers try and work their way back into this one somehow. D'Ambrosio has it at half forward, a hand pass over the top, and he'll work out to Stringer, who had an initial fumble, then he gave it to Merritt, who was under all sorts of pressure, back to Stringer, who hooks inside 50, and an easy mark taken for Ollie Wines tracking back.
8 points the margin at quarter time. The Power kicked 7 goals to none in that second term, and they've opened things up again as Butters sends it inside the 50, breaking down the middle. Marshall's on the end of it inside forward 50. It's all more of the same. Marshall's already got has already got 1 goal. Sam Powell-Pepper's got 2. Mitch Georgiades has 2. Boak, Amon, Butters, Dixon, Drew and McEntee with the goals for the Power. D'Ambrosio and Martin with the goals for Essendon. Port Adelaide have kicked the last 8 of the game. Todd Marshall steps in from inside the arc and slots another. The pain continues to pile on, and the Power are powering away, and the margin out to 57, a new game high straight away here in the third term. We're a minute in. Chris Johnson and Kieran Peterson, they dominated the second term, Port. It's continued to be the way early in the third.
Well, we spoke about it last night on our broadcast, Joel, when we had Carlton coming up against Melbourne, and a lot of people obviously didn't give them too much hope and actually being in the contest at the end of the game. And we spoke about the ability for Carlton last night to scrap and just compete at every contest, one-on-one, compete as much as your life depends on it. I think that's what we need to actually see from Essendon at the moment. The ability to compete in the contest at the moment is not there. They're slow on transition. They need to actually get their noses dirty a little bit.
57 points the margin. A clearance for Wines. Well done by Butters to hand pass jump in one action. Got it down to Drew fighting inside 50. No mark taken out the back. Laverty there for the Bombers. Hand pass inboard to McGrath. Hand pass back to Ridley. And his kick is okay. He finds Redmond, who goes long. It swings off the outside of the boot. Didn't do Dyson Heppel too many favours, and he sees it out for a boundary throw-in after a big contest there with Dersma. 3-5-23 the Bombers, 13-2-80 Port Adelaide. Tackle count 34-28 in favour of the Power, which is an interesting one this afternoon.
That's right, 47 more disposals for those in predominantly grey this afternoon with the black and white chevrons across the centre. The Bombers in their home black with the black shorts. Lovely jumper that the Port Adelaide women wore yesterday, similar to this jumper, but all teal which is a nice look as the Bombers send it forward. Merritt, long kick to centre-half forward. Draper, two hands to it. Surely a free against Langford. He just wrenched his opponent toward the ground. Jonas picks himself up and a ball up at centre-half forward for the Bombers.
I don't understand that kick. You're on half-back flank and you want to kick at the centre-half forward. I think you've got to come more towards the boundary rather than trying to go straight down the middle.
Rosie tries to sonker off the ground at the stoppage. Hind enters the 50. Finally a one-on-one for Peter Wright. First chance he's had all day. He dropped it cold. Jonas picked it up, tackled by Wright. Ball up, 30 out.
Ooh. John, Kez, what are you doing in the coach's
I'm a bit
box?
speechless. I mean, Jono, you drew that up, didn't you? You said it at half-time that we hadn't seen that matchup and dropped it cold.
That's ripping your hair out stuff as an Essendon supporter. Meanwhile, Draper, a flying shot at goal, doesn't have the penetration, and Lear takes it easily on his chest. This is going from bad to worse.
Yeah, I hate to say it, but normally in that instance, you're thinking that the reason why he drops a mark like that because he's expecting contact and he's worried about the contact.
Stringer trying to get things back on track for the Bombers. Hand passes inside 50. Hind found himself a little bit of space, then kicked into the man on the mark. Roving it nicely was Farrell. Hand pass to Wines. Hand pass to Houston. He goes forward of centre wing. No mark taken by Marshall. Won it down in front though. Spurts out the side of the pack to Boak. He's dispossessed. Parrish onto it for the Bombers. Hand pass to Merritt. Merritt to Laverty by hand. He goes back inside defensive 50. Misses his target. And it's a chance now almost for Duursma coming one way. Durham left it. Well done by Redmond. He was the only one who attacked that ball with any ferocity. And then he goes back inside. Good kick. And then he finds Heppel, who gets it to Parrish, a skidding ball, a turnover ball, and Burne-Jones has it.
Almost turned it over himself. Handball knocked down by Langford, ends up with Finlayson to Lear, kick out wide. This will be deliberate. Wait for the signal, and the cheer from the Essendon fans.
Well, the decision-making for the Essendon Footy Club is just poor at the moment. You have Parrish coming off half-back trying to thread a needle when he's got someone right in the middle of the ground that he can kick it to, could take an uncontested mark. That's just poor decision-making.
Bombers try to switch. Dangerous kick across the back 50 from Zirk Thatcher. He set Martin a task. Luckily, he was up to it. Kept the football in front of himself. Got it out to Ridley around the corner. And Draper waited for it when he couldn't afford to. Boak knocked it to Rosie. Handball to Marshall. Has to be quick. Got boot to ball. Georgiades. He just shoves Zirk Thatcher under it and pulls it in the right forward pocket, 25 out.
Well, there again, Jono, we see another really poor decision by the Essendon defenders. I don't mind what they're trying to do in trying to, go across the ground and try and open up the other side, but not when they're kicking to a 2-on-1. They're gaining absolutely no advantage by going across the ground if the next decision that goes forward is to a 2-on-1 across half forward for Port Adelaide. Really, again, poor decision by the Essendon defenders, and well done by Connor Rosie waiting to win that ball.
So the Power with 9 in a row so far. Georgiades comes in for his third and strikes the middle on the left-hand side, leaves the goalpost wobbling. 13-3 Port have been dynamite in front of the sticks so far. Essendon 3-5 and a turnover at the kick-in.
Shocking kick-in, straight onto the chest of Butters, and he will line up from 45, slight angle to the left. If
that there is the right decision, just poor skill execution. That was the right decision. Mossimo came up. They were trying to get it long to Bryant. Mossimo came up, but that was just a poor skill execution by Redmond, unlike him.
Ben Rutten's got any hair left. He might not by the end of the afternoon. In comes Butters. 47 from goal. Slight angle. He's pulled that one away to the left for one behind. A couple of chances gone begging early in this third term for the Power. The margin is 59 points. 13-4 plays 3-5.
So Redmond a kick in here. Let's see what he does with this one. Gallops in. Sends it to a 2-on-1. Martin got a hand to it. Out the back chance for Ridley. Dragged down by Bonner. Got his handball away. Back to Martin. Steps through the Marshall tackle, but handball went looking for McGrath. Set him an awful task. Socket off the ground by Boak to Powell Pepper. Steps through a couple. Gee, that looked pretty easy. Bergman spikes it inside the 50 by a foot, but it's over and out, and it's touched on the way through by Zirk Thatcher. Ball was clearly floating out of bounds on the full. Zirk Thatcher, his outstretched arm, knocked it before it cleared the line. And even when it goes well for Essendon, it doesn't go well. A throw-in inside the arc for the Power.
Toss back into play. It's off the boot there of Dixon. Oh no. He must have kicked it into the ground before it went out of bounds. So we'll have another stoppage. Ball to be tossed in 25 metres around from the right behind post for the Power. Umpire gathers himself. Then pings it back in. Dixon doing the ruck work. Won it down to the front. Hand pass from McGrath. Got it to Merritt. His high kick is out of bounds on the full. And that'll be a free kick this time for Houston. Who is a good kick of the footy, so he fancies his chances here to get it to the hot spot. Instead, he dabs it in short into the pocket. And Essendon, with all the numbers, Ridley able to chop that one off and go across the face of goal to find Redmond.
This could be anything. Out of the back 50 from Essendon. Redmond to Heppel. Half expecting him to kick it out of bounds on the full the way things are going for the Bombers. They trail by 59 points. Heppel, aggressive kick up the middle to McGrath, who's still 30 out from his defensive goal. Now to Zerk Thatcher, who started the game so well. He wants to go up the pipe. Finds the running Sam Durham, who goes back behind the mark. And Chris Johnson mentioned earlier there hasn't been a sense of urgency with Essendon so far, and it's still struggling to be found as he goes short to Zerk Thatcher, who had to work to pull it in. Closing on him was McEntee. Now the chip out wide to Laverty, all by foot to McGrath. He wants to put some pace into the game. Sends it inside the 50. Stringer in the van. He took it off the hands of Wright, then got dragged down by Aliir. Got the handball away, turned it over. Bonner's there for the Power. Handball to Bergman. He drives them out to the wing city side.
Looking for Dixon. Nudged under it by Ridley. Worked it nicely, the Bombers defender. Goes in short to Durham. Again, on the edge of the centre square. Stationary. Fires it forward to Hine. Chip over the top into space. Perkins takes it on his chest. 48 from goal directly in front.
Well, you just need to go. And, Durham was hesitating once again. But take the game on. And you would have heard this a few times, that take it on and then make it up as you go along. Because if you're not moving, no one else is going to be moving and giving you an option. So they actually forced some of these forwards to move them. And this guy here, Perkins, was one of them.
Now line up from 52. Does he have the carry? Yes! Through for a goal. And the Bombers get their first since the 28-minute mark, or 25-minute mark, rather, of the opening term. So it's been a long time between drinks. Perkins finally with a major in this second half. 4 goals, 5.29, placed 13-4-82. We've ticked through 11 minutes in this third term. Your experts this afternoon, Kieran Peterson and Chris Johnson.
Yeah, well said there, John. And we often say movement creates movement. And if you see a teammate who's, at least running towards you or, trying to create something up the ground, it's going to force you to react. And the reaction is often to come back at the ball, or particularly if they're under pressure, is to turn around and come back. If they've got a paddock in front of them, you run away from them. And again, though, it creates movement. And, I actually like that, the build-up that Essendon had there. It was a little bit... they nearly turned it over a couple of times, but the way that they were able to get it in and off the half-forward slingshot was good.
Bryan out of ruck, won it straight down to Finlayson, to Drew, to Rosie, 55 out, long ball away to the right. That would have been a blistering response from the Power. They just marched it out of the centre. Margin back to 54 points, 13-5 place, 4-5. And Port, they're still well and truly in control.
Ridley with the kick in duties, goes into the pocket and finds McGrath. Butters stands the mark, almost on defensive 50. So 12-2 they were at half-time. They've since kicked 1 goal 3, the Power. Kicking boots not quite on in this second half so far. Heppel has it now. Down the line, Burgoyne with the spoil over the top. Houston, hand pass to Aliir, to Rosie, back to Houston. And then he goes back inside defensive 50 to settle things down, and Jonas has it. He can go back to Houston if he wants, because no one trotted anywhere near him, so Houston has it again.
Gee, Rosie's been good tonight. He's always just got so much more time than what anyone else has. He's up to 16 disposal and kick to goal. He's been terrific.
He's a special player. Houston down the line. Marshall is showing he's much the same. The Deniliquin product pulls it in. Next to the AFL logo broadcast side. Low kick inside the 50. Charlie Dixon shoved under it by Laverty. Spilt to Butters. McEntee's handball taken by Heppel. Defensive hand pass to Ridley. Had a fumble. Rosie closed him down, dragged him down. Appeals to the umpire. The umpire says no, Connor. That's going to be a ball up, 30 out from the Port Adelaide goal.
Umpire tosses it up. Brian and Dixon battling in the ruck. Dixon, it bounced back into his breadbasket, but a couple of Bombers players held him as tight as they could. Another stoppage, tossed up quickly. Brian down over the top, was looking for Laverty. Coming the other way, Butters, and that's too high. A little bit careless there from Laverty. And Butters with the free kick. 35 out, tight angle to the left. But if anyone can hook it back, Butters can.
I was about to sing the praises of Laverty. He often plays as an undersized defender, and he did really well in the contest before. A little bit careless on that occasion, and unfortunately, I wouldn't want the ball in the hands of this guy if I was an Essendon fan.
15 metres inside the boundary line. Just shy of 40 metres out from goal. Butters looking to answer the Perkins goal, and he hooks it back beautifully. His second of the afternoon. Port Adelaide register their 14th. 14-5-89 plays 4-5-29. The margin a game high, 10 goals.
Look, I think Butters has been the difference, or he has been their barometer tonight in terms of actually tackling and getting the ball, using it well. He just looks faster than everyone else out in the ground today, and he's been making some really good decisions. He's actually gone against some of the flow of play at different times and actually come back around and actually hit his targets on a few different times. So I think tonight he's certainly standing up, and they would have liked him to do this a lot more. Obviously, he had a few injuries throughout the year. 17 possessions tonight, which has been fantastic. 6 of them have been contested as well. So, look, he's a real up-and-about type player. If he's up and about, look out.
Those bright green boots have been buzzing around Docklands this afternoon. At the stoppage, the restart, Caldwell fended off a couple of tackles, handball to Parrish, kick inside the 50. Langford goes sprawling out after it, couldn't pull in the mark, and Jonas releases Houston off half-back for the power. Whacks it up the city side. Ridley nudges Georgiades under it, has support from Laverty, loops the handball over the top to Parrish, immediately looks in field, then defensively, handball back to Laverty, now to McGrath, has to get around Boak, does, they keep going backwards here, the Bombers. Laverty goes across the back 50, measures the kick nicely in the end. It was awfully hard work though, and Zirk Thatcher's got it on the numbers of the defensive 50 at right half back.
Oh, it's a nervous existence of Bombers fans around the stadium this afternoon, as well as demoralising after that second term.
There's just no movement. There's no movement at all forward of the ball. There's a lot of movement behind the ball laterally, but not up in front of the ball.
Kelly pokes it inboard, and then Redmond turns it over. Port Adelaide with all the numbers. Bonner can pull the trigger from 60. He looks out the back. Marshall running back towards goal. Fantastic spoil by Zirk Thatcher. Had it all against him, not facing the ball, and was able to spoil through and rush the behind. 14-6-90, plays 4-5-29, 16 ticked over in the third term.
He's had a few moments, Zirk Thatcher, today in terms of the bad, but he certainly had some in terms of the good, Jono.
Yeah, he has. He's read the ball quite well a couple of times. That was early on in the first quarter, but I think he's been sort of overwhelmed at the moment. The amount of delivery that's been up in the forward line, he's done a great job.
Quality of that delivery as well. Martin's got it city side wing here. The Bombers getting expansive in their ball movement. Darts it inside the 50. Perkins rises to mark in front of Farrell. Pulls it in. Couple of paces inside the boundary line, left of centre and 45 out.
It was great ball movement there, but Essendon was probably their best ball movement passage of the night. They were able to actually find that slingshot player in the middle of the ground. And
called to play on. Perkins has kicked one already this term. Swings it around the body and misses to the right-hand side. We're going to have it tossed back in right forward pocket. Dons deep into attack.
I'm not too sure why it was called to play on there, but they were able to use the open side and actually gain an advantage rather than going backwards and putting themselves under pressure like they've done for most of the night.
It's almost like the umpire was watching the line, and as soon as he stepped over it, he paid it play on like it is when it's out of bounds on the full.
It's harsh.
Toss back into play, out the back of the pack. Port Adelaide again with the numbers. One's hand pass over the top is okay. Finds Powell Pepper, aggressive kick back to Wines, who drops the mark. Parrish keeps it low, over the head in the end of Wright, who came and almost ran underneath it. Taps it back into play, but it's all the power. Burton spun around, hand pass to Jonas, and then he looked to be tackled over the line, never made it. Just had to fall backwards, and Wright will receive the free kick in the left forward pocket.
Well done by Peter Wright here. But I think what he needs to think about now is he just needs to give a contest in the air, Kez. He's just looking for the perfect mark to be able to take it. He goes to the body, he comes off, and he's just trying to mark it perfectly. All your job is to compete, bring it down the air. If you're able to pluck a couple, it's a bonus.
It's normally a good part of his game. Wright hooks it back from the left forward pocket. It's a perfection. 5-5-35 the Bombers. 14-6-90 the Power. We've played 18 minutes in this third term on Grandstand AFL. Your experts Karen Peterson and Chris Johnson.
You're right, Jono. He does just need to make a contest, and he did it a couple of times really early in the game, that first quarter when the heat was on. I think he went up in a 3-on-2 contest, and he made a real good fist of it. He was able to bring it to ground and bring his little blokes around him in that forward 50 into the game. At the moment, I think you're right. It just seems like he's just trying to, go for that, over the top mark every single time that it comes anywhere near him. So, for him to continue to have an impact in this game, he just needs to bring the ball to ground and make a contest, crash a couple of packs, impose himself and the height that he's got and the big body that he is, and bring some of his teammates into the game as well.
Been a bit boom or bust in Essendon colours, Peter Wright. 41 games, 42 for the Bombers. He's only kicked one goal 3 times in that space. It's either a lot or not many, as Redmond takes it off the back of the stoppage to Hine, who darts inside the 50, closes to 40, eyes the sticks, great goal. Where's that been all day? Bombers have 3 in this third term, and the margin back to 49. 6-5-41 Essendon, Port Adelaide 14-6-90. 20 minutes played, third term on Grandstand AFL.
Well, they got the clearance. Redmond running off half-back, changed lanes, lowered the eyes and just hit that target. And I think more than anything else, Kez, is that the last 2 goals, or the last 3 goals that they've kicked, or they've been in terms of moving the ball, that it hasn't been a flourish of link-up handballs and then short kicks. It's been a bit of a mix. Short handball, a medium type kick, and then someone grabbing the ball under their arms and just breaking the 50 and taking the game and the responsibility upon themselves, which is Hine. Great goal.
So a couple of good signs here for the Bombers in the third term. Is it another clearance? Yes. Parrish gets it. Just took a little bit off the kick. It'll land in front of Merritt. He's got to be clean. Boundary line there. He keeps it in. Well done. He might have been taken without it. Now Perkins at ground level fights for it with Burgoyne over the top. Keen to keep it in. He does. It'll be a stoppage. 60 from the Bombers' goal.
What we're seeing here is Essendon starting to get themselves on top around the clearances. It's up to they're up 2 over in the game where they were down before half time, so they've done a great job in this third quarter.
Just feels like the intensity's there. Bonner went the fend. This will be holding the ball. Another inside 50 coming for the Bombers.
This will be plus 5 clearances for the quarter for Essendon. They're already plus 32 disposals. Shield gets around on his left boot, sends it long to full forward. Draper goes upstairs, can't pull it in. Perkins thrown off it. Guelphy grows to ground. Farrell at the top of the defensive goal square. Shoots the hand pass to Finlayson. Hacks it outside the defensive 50. Hands and knees stuff for Georgiades. Couldn't take it cleanly. Merritt's there for the Dons. Handball to Shield. Handball to Kelly. Left foot kick. Sprays it across the forward 50. Amon knocks it down. Boat comes through. He can't take it. Caldwell, Durham, Merritt, all in close for the Bombers. Flares it inside the arc. Peter Wright runs under it. And Aliir picks it off for the Power and sends it out to Powell Pepper. Port Adelaide by 49 points, 22 gone third term.
When they're receiving the ball, Kez, they're just receiving it stationary. Like, get on the move, know where the ball's going, get on the move, whether it's backwards, whether it's forward, whether it's lateral, just get on the move, because at the moment they're handballing to stationary targets.
Chris Johnson, part of your expert team this afternoon, along with Karen Peterson. Burgoyne has it now. Chips it to Farrell, back inside defensive 50, and he finds Aliir. Aliir to the left back pocket where Jonas has it. Switches on here too. He can go to Bono. He does. Does he go straight away? Not quite. So just taking a bit of tempo out of this one. Port Adelaide at the moment. Burton's long lead is rewarded as the pass is chipped over the top into his path. Still left half back here, the Power. Burton with a long kick this time. Bryan going back, made the spoil. Back into congestion. Nice work by Zirk Thatcher to get it to Ridley. Now it's a Redmond. Shocking kick off the outside of the boot. Turns it over at centre half back. Boak might have been dispossessed. Ball knocked out of his hands. Umpire wave play on. Drew taken. Now a chance for Burn-Jones. Out wide to right half forward. Dersma takes the mark. Just. And he's just inside 50. D'Ambrosio will stand on the paint.
Essendon Footy Club are just missing targets that AFL players should be missing when everything's in front of them, everything's in their 10 to 2, in their vision. They're just missing some poor targets.
Dersma back to Aliir. Aliir has to go out wide to right half forward. Mark is taken by Amon. Now he can kick a long ball. Gets to 55. Actually took a bit off the kick in the end. Nice mark over the top by Guelphy in unfamiliar territory at fullback.
Long way from home is Matt Guelphy. He's had an impressive season for the Bombers, kicking 17 goals. 19th game of the year today. Sends it outside the defensive 50. Give him a rap, he'll let you down. He kicked it straight down the throat of Farrell, who dropped the chest mark, went to ground, tackled by Draper. Port come up with it through Wines, who's been industrious as ever today. Kick along the line from Finlayson. Just got touched by Butters, who's, I reckon, giving a bit to the fans there as he turns around to some Essendon supporters across half forward, gesturing to a couple. Ball will be tossed back in left half forward. Joel Peterson and Andrew Mays calling it for you on Grandstand AFL. Chris Johnson, Karen Peterson, your experts. Lauren Borden on the boundary. Port Adelaide by 49 points and well and truly in control. Burton, high up and under inside the 50. Kelly a hand to it. Finlayson through the pack. Rosie a handball to Boak. On the edge of the 50 to Powell Pepper. Flicks it over the top into the pocket. Georgiades had it knocked away. Now McEntee along the boundary line. Can he keep it in? Kelly's pretty keen to see him out and does so. Left forward pocket deep into attack for the Power.
Chance here deep inside 50 for Port Adelaide. 14 on the board already. Thrown back into play. Draper on his own, not to take it, and then just double fists it down the line. Caldwell, a rush possession, high kick, going back with the flight. Houston probably caught one over the shoulder. His hand pass put Jonas under a bit of pressure. Happy to absorb the tackle and get over the boundary line and out of bounds right in front of Lauren Borden.
Well, at the start of this third term, the crowd was that flat. I thought we'd see some Essendon fans going home early at three-quarter time, but since that Hine goal, they've come back into the game, just cheering and jeering each umpiring decision, so it's a better atmosphere down here now.
I thought you were going to say, Loz, they came back into the stadium. I thought that'd be an interesting decision. As Merritt wheels away from the stoppage, kicks across the centre square to Dyson Heppel, who's running in the wrong direction before he shoots his kick to D'Ambrosio. Lovely pickup from Massimo D'Ambrosio, and then a great kick. Beautiful vision and touch to loft it over the top to Guelphy at left half forward. Guelphy marks 55 out, gets onto the right peg, sends it inside the 50. Aliir, a thump away from the pack, into the pocket. Martin with a chance. Bonner went to ground, slid in, no free kick. Parrish comes up with it for the Dons. Handball to Shield, flicks it on quickly to Merritt. Standing start, 50 out, kicks to the pocket. Jonas read it easily, and Martin is enraged, screaming at his teammates out there for the Bombers as Jonas chips short to Bonner.
Really well done by Tom Jonas there. I watched him. He was that spare that just dropped off and read the play beautifully. That's terrific defender craft if you're that spare, putting yourself in the right spot.
On a long kick down the line, Draper attacked it hard. Marshall attacked him. It's out of bounds.
They're giving their forwards no chance. The Guelphy inside forward 50 did not go to Peter Wright's advantage whatsoever. Aliir was sagging off him in front of him. If anything, it went to Aliir's advantage, not Peter Wright's. Until they can get that right, they had no chance in damaging their scoreboard or keeping up with this scoreboard.
Langford having a run in the ruck, knocked it the way of the boundary line. Butters kept it in. Back to Bonner, to Houston by hand. High kick, just short of centre wing. Good mark taken by Ridley in a one-on-one against Georgiades. So they're having a couple of good wins here, the Bombers, in this third term. Butters and Merritt getting stuck into each other off the ball. Long kick inside 50. Aliir again just able to work right out of that contest. And leaves the scraps for Houston, who off his left turns it over. Parrish there. Parrish goes quickly. He almost turned it over. It was through the hands of Hind, who has to recover. He didn't really get much of a hand pass away. It fell the way of Shield, though. Hand pass to Merritt. Chip over the top, inside 50. Redmond used his body well, just couldn't take it on the way down. Aliir to Boak by hand, and now to Rosie. Rosie, risky kick. It's okay, though. and hugged to Dersma's chest.
Not a lot of control for either side at the moment. Dersman chips short to Jonas. Of course, Dersman's sister Yasmin playing for the Port Adelaide women's team, picked up in the draft this season. Out there in the teal against the Bombers yesterday at Tullamarine. Jonas kicks down the line. Thatcher lost it after it bounced off his chest, and Bergman gave it to Burgoyne, who kicks inside the 50 for the power. Dixon's out after it, controls it down. Ridley took it off him. Well worked by the Essendon defender. Handball to Laverty. He got it away to Langford, who spikes it up the line. And the three-quarter time siren sounds. A better term from Essendon. They at least made some inroads, but only just. Port Adelaide adding 2 goals, 4 in the quarter. Essendon with 3 goals straight. And what was a 51-point half-time margin at three-quarter time is a 49-point spread the way of the power. 14-6-90 Port Adelaide to Essendon 6-5-41. Port have got 90 on the board through 3 quarters. They've only scored more than that in a full game on 4 occasions this year. Marshall, Butters, Georgiades, Powell Pepper each have 2 for Port. Rosie Boak, Amon, Dixon, Drew, McEntee each with singles. For the Dons, 2 goals. The first 2 goals of the career of Massimo D'Ambrosio both came in the opening term. Goals since to Perkins, Hind, Wright and Nick Martin for the Dons.
So Port Adelaide by 49 points at the final break. Winners a little earlier today, in case you missed it, at the MCG. It was Richmond by 61 and Sydney by 27 over the Pies in the game that finished about half an hour ago. So a big last quarter coming up for Port Adelaide. They'll be able to celebrate a good win on the way home. By how much? We'll find out very shortly. You're listening to Grandstand AFL on ABC Radio and ABC Sport Digital.
Did you know that ABC Listen has a little sibling?
Hi.
The ABC Kids Listen app with music to move and podcasts to play. ABC Kids Listen stimulates curiosity, fires imaginations, and fosters good listening skills.
Wow! That's a funny noise.
Discover a world of entertainment that will spark creativity in the minds of your little ones and get them up and moving. Download ABC Kids Listen today, free from your app store.
The 2022 AFL Premiership season.
Grandstand AFL on ABC Radio and ABC Sport Digital.
Butters sends it inside the 50, breaking down the middle. Marshall's on the end of it inside forward 50. It's all more of the same. From inside the arc, slots another. The pain continues to pile on.
To Hind, chip over the top into space. Perkins takes it on his chest. 48 from goal directly in front. Line up from 52. Does he have the carry? Yes! Brian down over the top was looking for Laverty. Coming the other way, Butters, and that's too high. Butters looking to answer the Perkins goal, and he hooks it back beautifully. Burton spun around, hand pass to Jonas, and then he looked to be tackled over the line. Never made it. Just had to fall backwards, and Wright will receive the free kick in the left forward pocket. Wright hooks it back from the left forward pocket. To perfection.
Redmond takes it off the back of the stoppage to Hind, who darts inside the 50, closes to 40, eyes the sticks, great goal.
This is the 2022 AFL Premiership season.
On ABC Radio and ABC Sport Digital.
Three-quarter time here under the roof, where Port Adelaide 14-6-90 lead Essendon 6-5-41. Andrew Mays and Joel Peterson calling it for you this afternoon. Lauren Borden on the boundary, and to run their expert eye over that third term, which where Essendon were able to stem the bleeding a little bit. Your experts, Kieran Peterson and Chris Johnson. Guys?
Look, there were some little positives that were creeping into the Essendon game plan, or the Essendon structure, if you want to call it that. They were winning. They won a couple of clearances there, and there was some ball flow that coming off half-back and going into their forward line. But all the stats are heavily weighted in favour of Port Adelaide. And, you know, I think for me at the moment, it's just more about, and I spoke to it in that third quarter around the scrapping and the ability to compete. You know, I think what they're trying to do, Essendon, is they're trying to be a little bit too cute at the moment. They're trying for the perfect kick. They're trying for the perfect handball. Why don't you just try and get it to a one-on-one scenario, somewhat advantage to your teammate, and let them do the work and see whether they can win a one-on-one contest. And I think that's where it all sort of lies. Port Adelaide at the moment, they just look better structured. They're using the ball better. They're running the lines. They're changing lanes. They look like, when someone's coming through the middle of the ground and going to the forward line, Kez, they've got numerous options to go to. They just haven't got the one. I spoke about Peter Wright at the moment. He's just going under the ball, which you called a couple of times, Joel, and Maisie, where he went up for the ball and just got pushed underneath it quite easily and just didn't sort of fight for that position to keep it in and keep it in that area to bring it to ground. There's been a couple of times where Essendon have gone forward, Kez, to the front of the square, and there's one thing you're going to go there, but then you've got to set up on your ground level players to actually set up to be front and square and hit it at speed. At the moment, they're just standing there. Perkins, and I think there's a few other, Shield as well, is just standing there rather than actually hitting that contest with speed. And then when they're getting the handballs to each other, they're giving it to stationary people. They're sitting there stationary and they've got no movement whatsoever. So they need to work out that little bit. But on the other hand, Port Adelaide, they've been fantastic. Their ball movement has been really, really good. They've really tried all night from the get-go.
Yeah, you've called that well. We spoke through that third quarter in particular about Peter Wright needing to create a contest, and that's all good and well if he does that, but absolutely, you're right. As soon as the ball hits the deck, you're going to have front and centre representation for it to actually come off and be an advantage. The one thing for Essendon in that third quarter was that they still continued on their merry way with the hit-outs. They were +9, but the difference was that they were actually +5 in the clearances. So unlike the first half where they were getting absolutely smashed in the clearances, they were able to get on top in that third quarter.
Bit of movement in the centre circles as well, so we'll see Peter Wright have a go to open proceedings, and he wins it down to Martin, who came in from the wing. Hand pass to Merritt, off to Redmond, off his left. Not a bad kick either. Good spoil from behind by Farrell. D'Ambrosio kept it in blindly, turned it over straight to Finlayson. Hand pass over the top to Pal Pepper, who might have been taken without it. He was. At least there seems like a bit of intent from the Bombers at the start of this final term. Pal Pepper, rather nonchalantly, just hand pass over the top to Farrell. Then he wrong-footed himself, dropped the footy. Merritt, hand pass, finds Redmond. It'll come back to Merritt, who copped one high on the way through. Farrell will stand the mark. Merritt, left half back for the Bombers. They trail by 49 points.
Trailed by 51 at the half. Merritt, aggressive kick, puts it into the path of Laverty, leading up the middle for Essendon, still behind halfway. He flares it out wide to Zerk Thatcher. He's 15 metres behind halfway, and now to Dyson Heppel right on the midline. And on the AFL logo, City side at Docklands. The skipper whacks it inside the 50 for the Dons. Houston and Stringer in the wrestle. Jake Stringer with his arms outstretched. There's a sight for sore eyes. And Houston is paid a free kick. The tipping Stringer didn't agree with the decision.
Well, it's really got nothing to complain about either, because he was a stationary target again, Jono. We spoke about that. And when Heppel went to line up to kick down the line, then he just had absolute witches' hats to kick to. So I'm not sure too much what Stringer was complaining about.
Finlayson to Rosie, who held the mark for, I thought, enough time, and then was spoiled at the last moment. Kick inside 50, mark taken by Perkins, 40 out directly in front. Did he have enough of it?
Yeah, I think he did. I think it's what I'm looking at Essendon and just trying to assess this first sort of 2 minutes. It's just what we're seeing. We're seeing the indecisiveness with their decision making. They're not too sure whether they're doing the right thing or what they're supposed to do. And at the moment, Port Adelaide have just let them get that short kick, and they've always got it on.
In comes Perkins. He'll kick from 47. That one looks good too. Straight through the middle, his second, and a nice start to the final quarter for the Bombers. 7-5-47 Essendon, 14-6-90 the power, 43 points the margin, and we've played 2 minutes.
Really, it looks like there's two teams not really having a lot to play for, coming into the back end of the season. And you can just look at the body language after someone has kicked a goal. Yeah, fair enough. They're, 43 points down, but you've got to get some excitement. That's a goal to a young man that's only just in the team or at the football club in his third year at the moment. So, get some excitement about it. I know it's, you don't want to be over-celebrating, but just the body language, everyone walking back to their positions, it looks like, it just looks bad.
Plenty to discuss in the aftermath. 0437 774 774 for your contributions on the SMS. Tim from Wodonga with one that might come up. Why did the Bombers omit two of their best young players in Jones and Hobbs for this game? It's a fair question, Tim.
Listening in the box before the game.
Yes, I think he had an ear on our discussion as Shield tries to rip it away. He was legged. Free kick and advantage. Caldwell to Hind. Kicked one in the third. Lays this one off into the pocket to Perkins. And Archie can go back and try and kick a third.
Well done there by Nick Hind. He probably had every right to try and load up and have a launch at the sticks there, but instead he took the better option, which was to spot up one of his teammates, and it happens to be young Archie Perkins. Archie Perkins, rather. Really well done by Nick Hind.
Kicked three a couple of times in his career, Archie Perkins. Can he dob a third here? He's set shot from 40 metres out to the right. His shot is out to the left. It's only just snuck in for a minor score. So he's tugged that badly. Margin 7 straight kicks. Port Adelaide 14-6. Essendon 7-6. 4 minutes played in the final term on Grandstand AFL.
Farrell with the kick-in duty. Spins the ball with his right hand to load up with that big left foot. He goes straight down the middle as well. Dixon was able to get it to the advantage of Wines out the back. Marshall was in 50 metres of space, lays it over the top. Butters marks 20 out directly in front. How the hell did that happen, Chris Johnson?
Yeah, well, they play this style of football now in this elite game that they're going to drag all their defenders up and they're going to defend the sort of 80 metres rather than actually having someone come all the way back, sitting there, just being unmanned.
You've got to actually defend those, John.
Yeah, exactly right. But what happened was that they tried to compete in the air. You've got to fist that ball straight back to where it came from. You've got it sort of at the back, and Wines were able to get onto it. But that's the style of the game that we're playing these days.
2 for Butters already. He comes in and gets his third. It looks like he's heading straight for a rest as well. Essendon 7-6-48. Port Adelaide with their first of the final term. 15-6-96. We've played 5 minutes.
Well, credit, I think, has to go to Ollie Wines with that one, Jono. He crashed this pack with speed and was just able to knock the ball forward. And I don't know how Todd Marshall had that much space. He had an absolute paddock and a half to run into. And once Butters gets on the move, there's no one going to be catching him running back to goal.
Yeah, just had a look at it, Kez. It was Laverda. He came right up to the back of that stoppage and just left Marshall on his own. So I think that's an instruction for most, I guess, or around your kick-ins or whatever it is that you're coming up and you're leaving and being that extra man in the contest, but you've got to have confidence in your guys that are going to give a contest at the source of the ball.
Last few weeks would indicate Essendon not great at defending kick-ins.
No.
Just ask Jamie Elliott and Collingwood from the restart. Shield, toe pokes it forward. Stringer pushes Burton off it. Handball forward for Wright, who runs inside the 50. Did a little bit of roving. Handed it off to Hind. Into the pocket in stride. Taking the mark is Langford. Left forward pocket.
Well, they have thrown the magnets around a bit. That's Hind twice now inside the forward 50. So he's situated himself in the forward line at the moment. So the Rutten and his coaching staff are thinking, well, let's just try and get a bit of speed in our forward line.
The Butters goal at the other end snapped a run of 3 in a row for the Bombers. Langford to answer back. Got it. Beautiful finish, curling it around the body from the left forward pocket. Kyle Langford's on the board for the evening. Margin back to 42. Port 15-6. Bombers 5-6. 7 gone. Final term. Grandstand AFL on ABC Radio and ABC Sport Digital.
Yeah, absolutely spot on there. They've thrown Nick Hind forward, and it's almost something that you would expect them to do at halftime. Like, why didn't we see this in the third quarter where, you may as well throw caution with the wind, and it looks like you're probably going to lose the game anyway. You may as well actually try and win the game. And I would have liked to have seen that move a little bit earlier, because it's something that Essendon haven't been able to do today is get some leg speed and that run and carry that he's providing in the last couple of minutes. So well done to him. And just on the point from before about that kick in, I still think that you need to have a plug or a spare that drops behind the ball, just in case you get one like that where it gets over the back. And Essendon have been victim, as you mentioned, with that Collingwood loss. It's not going to cost them tonight, but it has in the past.
Right in the middle. This time it's Port Adelaide bursting away. Boat fires it inside 50. No mark taken. Laverty taken without the footy. Free kick for the Bombers defender, who's been under all sorts of pressure this afternoon.
There's just no one working. There's no one working at the moment. Everyone's just sort of half jogging, thinking, oh yeah, we're just going to go down the line again. And what have they done? Just gone down the line.
Stringer was the target coming in. Third man was Merritt, who tried to bash it forward. Stringer tried to get around Burton, couldn't do so. Good tackle by the defender. Drew there, took a bit off the kick. Lovely touch. Able to find Rosie, who has aim on, bursting pass, gives the running hand pass to him, and then a kick inside 50. Finlayson, lovely work off the body, and then couldn't take the mark. Got up like a jack in the box. No pressure, strolled into goal. Too easy for the big man, and he took his opportunity. 16-6-102, plays 8-6-54, 54 rather. The margin is back to 48 points. We've played 8 minutes in this final term on Grandstand AFL.
Well, they won the contest on half-back here, Kez, and basically just worked it out nicely, worked it over to Rosie, and then Rosie had a runner outside in Amon, who took the grass, which we haven't seen Essendon do, but certainly Finlayson, he's played a game tonight. He's been pretty good in the ruck when he's had his opportunities in there, and then when he's gone forward as well. He certainly looks like a different player now playing in the ruck and pinch hitting it forward in Dixon, because we do know that that Port Adelaide have got their ruck stocks at the moment. They're a bit at short at the moment, but certainly these two boys at the moment, Dixon and Finlayson, really doing a good job in substitution each other for the ruck and full forward.
18 disposals for Finlayson, only the 6 hit-outs, but 4 clearances, 4 inside 50s, and now the goal. So he's done a little bit of everything as Jeremy Finlayson, and probably has had to. Parrish defensively works for the Bombers. They can only fumble it toward half-back. No one's taken clean possession. Now Merritt does. Handball to Bryan. Hacks it off a step straight to Wines for the power. Out wide to aim on it right half-forward. Kick and a half from home. Assesses the options inside the arc. Powell Pepper makes a short lead. He loops the handball out wide to Burton, who's going to have to kick off a step. An absolute skyscraper inside the forward 50. Laverty goes up, had it knocked out of his hands at the very last moment. Durham dives in on top of it. McEntee wrenches it free around the body to Rosie, who misses to the right-hand side and makes the margin 49 points, 10 played in the final term.
Quick kick out is okay for the Bombers. Finding Martin, aggressive kick is good to centre-half back, and he finds Parrish. Running past was Martin, ignored him. Again, it's very stagnant from half-back.
There's just no one presenting. They're just actually relying on the kicker to actually thread the needle somewhere.
Wide to Kelly and wider to Redmond. He does thread the needle. Beyond the wing to Martin. Back to Kelly, who kept on running by hand. He goes by foot inside 50. They're right, caught behind. Hind onto it. Snap is almost amazing. It's through for one behind. Off the left, running away from the goal. Physics says you can't bend that without hitting a banana. 8-7-55, play 16-7-103 after 11 minutes, final term.
Hey, Maisie, you said that Wright was behind, and Kelly just needed to drive that ball a bit longer. He sort of pulled the kick. It was almost like a 40-45 metre kick, where if he drives it longer, he gives Peter Wright an opportunity.
Blake from the back pocket to Burn-Jones, to Farrell, and now to Dersma. And the run of Ollie Wines. The Echuca boy bursts past and blasts it inside the 50. Dixon got a hand to it, knocked it down. It'll be the first there at ground level as well. 45 out from the power goal. He posts Redmond up, drags it back in, gets the handball away to Amon, who finds Finlayson. Great work, Charlie Dixon. Finlayson to a Georgiades, uncovered. Another one for the power. Mitch Georgiades has 3. Great work, Dixon, but it was too easy after that. And poured out by 54 again. 17-7-109 to Essendon, 8-7-55. 12 played final term, and there's plenty of goals on offer here in the last quarter.
Well done there for the Port forwards. They just worked together, and let's be honest, Essendon made it look very, very easy for the Port Adelaide forwards. They were once again just standing behind. You can see them huddled up here in the back line. They're trying to generate something, but it's just not happening for them tonight. They're just being totally dominated in every sense of the word. Someone who we haven't spoken a lot about tonight is Ollie Wines. I think he's been terrific. He's had 23 touches, and he's up to 13 contested possessions, and he's really been a little bit of muscle around the ball that's done a great job tonight. And here we go. We see the umpire's just warning that the ruckman, one of his players, is infringed in the 666 rule, but he's been terrific, Ollie Wines, and well done to the Port forwards.
Merritt The clearance, hand pass to Corball, back to Merritt, who kept on running, takes a bounce, gets to 60, to the top, to the hot spot rather. Stringer was front and centre, towed it to the advantage of Martin running through, left forward pocket, hand pass back to Guelphy, who's going to ground, good hand pass to Parrish, who should finish from 40 and does. Nice piece of play that from the Bombers, 9-7-61. Port Adelaide 17-7, 109 after 13 minutes in this final quarter on Grandstand AFL. So Ben Rutten, what's he looking for in this last 15 minutes of play, just so he can tick a few boxes?
Well, they would have had a plan coming in, and the plan would have been, making sure that they're honest to each other and all the little other bits and pieces that they only know. He'll be looking towards whether are they capable of still doing some of these structures and being consistent with each other, and obviously some of those things would have changed along the way as this game has gotten out of hand, and I reckon that's, they would have addressed something at half-time, three-quarter time, and really, really want that. And I think it's more about just trying to tick those boxes as much as you can. You're not going to win the game. It's going to be impossible to win the game, but that's what he'd be looking for.
Draper slaps it out of ruck, and Merritt just slaps it forward for the Bombers, taken by Stringer coming up from centre-half forward. Martin got rid of Butters. Wines picked it up, just bullocks his way through. Handball to Drew, and now out to McEntee, who enters the 50 for the Power. High kick, Charlie Dixon. A brute of a grab. Wrestled Laverty off, and then centres it up, and Finlayson's just streaming straight down the middle, pops it over the top. Pal Pepper with the easiest of goals in the square. How they have found themselves free to the extent they have today, Port Adelaide, has been remarkable. And they've cracked a big score this afternoon. Margin 54 again. It's been bouncing around in this final term. 18-7, 115 to Essendon, 9-7-61. The Bombers have 3 in the final term. Port have 4 goals.
Well done there by Charlie Dixon. That was a terrific mark, the contested mark on the wing to begin with, and then just spotted up Jeremy Finlayson. So whoever the ruckman was, it must have been Draper at that last centre bounce. Has just been a little bit lazy and allowed Finlayson just to stream forward as soon as Port Adelaide were able to gain possession, and that's really poor defensive work from the Essendon ruckman. And when you've got Jeremy Finlayson, who's been really good tonight, Jono, as you've mentioned, just streaming through the middle of the ground, none of the defenders from Essendon are going to be able to do anything about it. And then again, really unselfish play by Finlayson to get the ball to Pal Pepper.
2 goal assists, the last 2 goals for Port Adelaide for Jeremy Finlayson. Butters with the free kick in the middle. He shows that acceleration, just ran around Draper way too easily. Goes deep inside 50. No mark taken by Dixon. He then becomes the tackler. Rosie heard a voice. Hand pass over the back of his head. Dersma sliding in. He's dispossessed. Comes the way of Finlayson. Got his hands free. Stepped around Draper way too easily and marches into another goal. He is having a purple patch at the moment. 2 for Finlayson. And Port Adelaide kick another. 19-7, 121 to 9-7-61.
Well, it's just a missed tackle. The missed tackle from Draper, he had him wrapped up, he had him cold, but the ability to Finlayson just kept driving the legs where Draper thought he may have had him, but look, Finlayson has actually just turned it on. We've spoken about him before, Kes. You spoke about it as well. He's been a pretty good performer so far since coming over from the Giants. And look, he'll. The good thing that Port Adelaide will know next year. Well, look, they're not going to make finals. Is that they know that they've got 2 key forwards that can pinch hit in the ruck. So what they can actually do, they can actually just go ahead and play with 1 ruckman and play with another extra forward, extra mid, or an extra defender now, rather than try and have to play with 2 ruckmen.
Jeremy Finlayson showing all of his tools out there. And this is a season-high score for the Power already with more than 10 minutes of game time still to play. Shield in the middle for the Bombers. Handball forward. Martin knocks it out wide to Ridley, who's up at half-back in this final term. To Laverty, tumbles it down the line, bounces awkwardly for Guelphy. Burne-Jones slaps it down for the Power. Martin a fumble. Caldwell, he had it ripped off him by Charlie Dixon. Like taking candy from a baby. Big Chaz just pounced and pulled it away from him. And now Boat shoots it inside the 50 to Marshall. Marshall will go to the pocket. There's Port players everywhere. Carl Amon ends up with it. 35 out, 30-degree angle to the right of centre. But that was all too easy for Big Charlie at half-back.
They could have raffled that one going inside forward 50 as well. They had players streaming out of the goal square, and again, just catching their Essendon defenders on the hop. They're just allowing too much space between them and their opponent at the moment, and it's easy pickings for the Port Adelaide forwards.
Question marks about this man's future in the teal. Looks to maybe be destined to leave in the off-season. Amon can't squeeze this one through. Pulls his set shot to the right. A minor score. 19-8, 122 Port Adelaide. Their biggest score of the season continues to grow. Essendon 9-7, 61. So the margin is that 61 points.
Ridley, a shocking kick straight down the throat of Dersma. Hardly had to move. And he was in 15 metres of space. Dersma chips it into the pocket. Georgiades flies, couldn't take the mark. Heavy landing for him as well. Now a chance for Langford, just dumps it on the boot to the top of 50. Houston takes the mark, and he might just have the journey if he wants here. Dersma pointing towards goal. Umpire's going to give him his 30 as well. He's probably 15 metres inside the boundary. He lines up. It's straight enough. Is it long enough? Yes! A big late blow. 28, 128 to 9-7, 61. This is getting very, very ugly for the Bombers after a bit of a fight back in the third term. Let's head downstairs. Lauren Borden.
Ben Rutten's been coaching from the boundary like he normally does. He hasn't changed his expression much all game, just seems to be slowly taking in each play, analysing it, but he's still encouraging his team, still clapping them even after that goal then, still just yelling out, come on, trying to get something in the last 10 minutes.
19 played, final term. The margin now 67 points. Your experts on Grandstand AFL this afternoon, Karen Peterson and Chris Johnson.
John, it's going to be hard for the Essendon coaching staff to try and find some positives out of today, to be fair. I mean, they were okay in that third quarter in terms of getting themselves on top with the clearances and those sort of things, but it's been pretty ugly for the rest of it.
New game high, 6 goals here in the final term to the Power after they kicked 7 unanswered, unchallenged really in the second term. They led by 8 points at quarter time, by 51 at half time, 49 at three-quarter time, and the margin is now 67. Caldwell spins through a tackle, handballs toward half forward, sliding in for the Power was Dersma. He couldn't clear the area. Houston, the goal kicker, dives on top of Caldwell. And we'll have it tossed up. Charlie Dixon's just wandering out at half forward with no one within 30 metres of him. They finally spotted the biggest bloke on the ground as Brian slaps it forward. Boak's there for the Power. Dersma flicks it over his head into space in front of Powell Pepper, who kept the ball moving and then stayed with the play. Handball to Bergman, quickly onto Farrell. He's got some tricks up his sleeve. Flicks the handball out wide to McEntee. Dumped as he kicked it. Doesn't matter because Marshall's paid the mark on the 50. And this has been where Port have had free players inside the arc all day. No surprise. Bergman marks 45 out.
Well, it's just the brute force of Powell Pepper, half-back flank, just tracked the ball as all the Essendon players actually ran over the ball. Where he kept the ball in front of him, that's just a key fundamental. And I reckon that's where we haven't used the word fundamental tonight, Kez, but there's a lot of key fundamentals that Essendon are poor at.
First round pick a couple of years ago, Miles Bergman strikes the set shot beautifully and continues the Port party at Docklands. Margin out to 73. This is an absolute pasting. 21-8, 134 to Essendon, 9-7, 61. Still plenty of time to play. 7.5 minutes remaining here on Grandstand AFL.
Yeah, you mentioned Sam Powell-Pepper there, Jono, and he's had a terrific game. He's had 19 touches. He's kicked 3 goals. His disposal efficiency's up around 70%. He's been fantastic just the way that he's bullocked his way through. What's he have? 4 marks, none contested. Trying to find his contested clearance. His contested possessions, because I'm sure it'd be very, very good. 8 contested possessions. He's been terrific tonight. He's been around the ball. He's been that muscle, as you said, and he's been terrific in getting them going forward.
I haven't done the numbers yet, but I reckon their percentage will go well past Collingwood's tonight after this win, which is an amazing situation. From the middle, Shield bursts free, got it to Stringer, 40 out, directly in front, kicks it off his shin. Sneaks in for a behind, and that sums up their afternoon. 9-8-62 the Bombers, 21-8, 134 the Power after 22 minutes.
It's not been Jake Stringer's days, had plenty of the footy, but next to no impact on the game. Kane Farrell can whack one up the pipe here. Seen him kick a lot of torpedoes in from fullback in his under-18 days. He goes the conventional drop punt. Felted into the lap of Dersma. Handball defensively to Powell Pepper. They open things up again, Port. Boak, low to half forward. Butters, those bright green boots have almost been in a blur all afternoon as they've been whizzing around Docklands. Handball back to Powell Pepper. Has the time to run in an arc. Send it into Marshall, who towers over the pack and leaves the Dons defenders dumbfounded.
Long, deep, into your key forwards. That's all you need to do, and let them do the work and not run underneath it, Kez. It's actually coming back. It's going to be a free kick. So
that's very stiff for Todd Marshall. So it would have been Todd Marshall's 99th goal had he gone back and kicked it. He could have brought up the milestone on the afternoon. Instead, it's going to Jed McEntee. And the set shot could be his third goal, which not quite as significant in the context of a career. And it brings up 140 points on the board for Port as they continue to skip away their equal biggest score in the past 2 seasons. 22-8, 140 Port Adelaide. Essendon 9-8, 62. 24 minutes gone, final term. Your experts on Grandstand AFL, Brisbane Lions Premiership player Chris Johnson and Carlton's AFLW captain Kieran Peterson.
Against Redmond. Redmond just pulled him across a bit too high, but not a lot in it. In that we get the luxury here of a slow-mo here on the big screen here, but not a lot in it. And yeah, probably Todd Marshall should feel a little bit robbed there because it was a great mark and he could have gone back, as you said, Joel, kicked his 99th goal.
It's been a long afternoon for Bombers fans. Draper won it over the top, back in the middle to Langford, who was slung 360. Probably should have been holding the ball. Nice tackle again by Finlayson at ground level. Rosie to Wines, who tried to pop up through the middle of 2 Bombers. Got rid of the ball, and Finlayson puts McGrath down. Possibly a dangerous tackle. Lucky not to hit his head. It was more his shoulder than anything else that went into the ground, so that could have been all sorts of trouble for Finlayson after a nice little patch of footy. McGrath with a free kick at true centre half back for the Bombers.
Of course, next week a home showdown for the Power. I'll take plenty of confidence into it after this performance. Ridley's kick out wide. Ball in the hands of Perkins, who's kicked a couple. Sends his kick long down the line to half forward. Wright gets nudged under it by Aaliyah. Houston kept it in front of him at the pack. Paddles it to his own advantage. Wright goes back in. Handball to Langford. Handball to Parrish. Hooks it around his body inside the forward 50. And a nice juggling mark taken by Carl Amon with Draper closing him down. He's going to drop it into the bucket at half back. Looking for McEntee. Reaching up over the top to take it away with Zirk Thatcher. Martin. Handball to Shield. Popped it by hand back out wide to Martin. And now back to Laverty, who's almost in line with halfway. Margin is 78 points the way of the Power.
Sorry, Joel, don't know Sam Draper, but his body language then was just unacceptable for a guy who's given away a free kick numerous times tonight and just not to stand the mark with any urgency.
Finlayson, hand pass to Rosie, bursting through the centre, just put it to full forward, said to Marshall, go fetch that. He got over the back, Marshall created the contest, but the Bombers' numbers overwhelm him. Hand pass comes from Langford over the top to Kelly. High kick. D'Ambrosio will just get there. He takes it on his chest inside the boundary, right half back. Looking to cut back inside initially, then went a little longer down the line over the head of Hind. Numbers with the Power, although a little bit of a fumble. Socket away from Burn-Jones. Now Perkins for the Bombers. Took a bit off the kick. Hind trying to get onto this. Running inside, attacking 50. Houston there to meet it for the Power. Hand pass to left half back. Wines has it. Dinks the kick in short. It's good to Rosie. Loops the hand pass over the top. Running forward of centre wing is Bonner. Delivers inside 50. Out the back, Powell Pepper. Just kept it in front of himself. Ball got away from him. Boat falls over at the vital moment, was shoved off it. Chance now for the Bombers defence through Ridley, and Ridley switches play to the left back pocket where the captain has it, Dyson Heppel.
If you're Ben Rutten and you've got a few in the line for the axe, Jono. Sam Draper's had 4 disposals and taken 1 mark and laid 1 tackle and been absolutely dominated by 2 half ruckmen. It's been as bad a performance, considering he should have come in as the dominant player on the ground in that position. As bad a performance as you could imagine, really.
Yeah, look, you don't know. He may be ill. He could be carrying an injury, may have come into the game sort of 50, 60, 70%. But look, there is one thing that you can sort of challenge players on is this, how they man the mark. I know you're not allowed to jump around and everything anymore, but it's how you man the mark once you're getting a free kick against you or a mark against you.
Yep, so Don's inside the defensive 50 here. Heppel and McGrath have a couple of nervous moments between them. Tumbles it outside the defensive 50. Amon gets a fist on it, reaches over the top of Martin. Ball out toward the boundary line, and Alir, a show of strength against Guelphy, who gets up and just looks... Well, it was a look of resignation, really, on the face of Matt Guelphy. Ball will be spun back into play. In front of our broadcast position, 28.5 gone in the final term here on Grandstand AFL. Port Adelaide by 78 points.
Still a few minutes left to be played here. Draper from the ruck just soccers it out of mid-air. It'll pitch in front of Alir, who wanted the boundary line, took possession, got his arms free and got a miraculous handball back inboard to Burn Jones. Hand pass to Amon, risky kick going back. Forced to spoil was Jonas, has time to mop up, back to Amon. And Amon has the outlet. It's Houston in the right back pocket. He goes short to Burton at right half back. Happy just to sit on the footy for the time being, and then all the way back to fullback where Butters has it. Burgoyne offering a run short instead to the back pocket. And Bonner receives the footy. Chips back inboard. Stats coming pretty easily at the moment for the Power. Rosie back to full back, and Houston has it. This is just going to be keepings off for 3 minutes.
Yeah, he's going to come right out of the footy. So Port 22-8, 140. They kicked 21-14 against Carlton in the same round of last season. Kick directed down the line from Amon to Alir. It's very easy at the moment for the Power. Training drill type stuff. They haven't kicked a bigger score than 140 points since round 6 2017 when they put up 155 on the Brisbane Lions. As short kick finds Burgoyne as Hind lays on top of him, directed by the umpire to get up. They led by 8 points at quarter time, 51 at the half, 49 at three-quarter time Port Adelaide, and they've kicked 8 goals in this final term to Essendon's 3. To lead it by 78 points as we go past 30 minutes in the final quarter.
Burton with it again, beyond centre wing with his pass. Drew, nice mark, no, just dropped it at the last moment over the top. Hand pass comes away of Rosie, who got through traffic, took a bounce, gets to centre half forward, loops a hand pass over the top. Finlayson was looking for another hand pass, got it to Wines. He gives it to Boak, and the old boy hooks and misses everything. Oh, it would have been a nice finish. Travis Boak, the veteran, puts it out on the full. 30 played final term, margin 78 points.
I think that was the longest build-up to a kick out of bounds on the full that I've ever seen, Maisie.
There's a bit of suspense in it. The Essendon screen up on the scoreboard showing up. Member thank you round is next week. It certainly wasn't this week, as Perkins whacks it into the middle for the Dons. Hind gets upstairs, thumped away by Houston. Massimo D'Ambrosio might have provided just about the only highlight for the Dons today with his 2 first-quarter goals. A mid-season draftee out of the Point Cook Footy Club in Melbourne's western suburbs. Draper goes in. It's taken away by the Power at the contest. Aim on a handball away to Drew. Kicks down the line. Ridley almost picked it off. Dixon got a handball in there. Then a toe poke inside the forward 50. Travis Boak runs onto it. Handball to Powell Pepper. Tight in the pocket. Hooks it around. Powell Pepper's got 4. And the Power have got their biggest score of the season at 146 points. Their biggest score in the last couple of years. 23-8, 146 to Essendon, 9-8, 62. And they continue to run away with it. It's now going to be their equal biggest win of the year, matching that at 84 points against West Coast in round 6.
Well, you know nothing's going your way when you're a halfback flanker in Ridley taking a mark and getting your arms chopped and the umpire not even getting it or picking up on it and then able to work it through. And the Power, when they've gone forward, I really like the way their energy's been. Kez, they've just willed their way to get to a loose ball or get to a contest and bring it to ground, and they've certainly led the way in that tonight.
Wines with the clearance to Finlayson, who'll drive it inside 50 for one last chance. No mark taken. Butters heard a voice, but his hand pass missed the target. And the siren goes for Port Adelaide's biggest score of the year, their biggest win of the year, and their second biggest win of all time against the Bombers. It has been a horrid afternoon for Ben Rutten's men. The final margin, 84 points in favour of the Power. Final score, Port Adelaide 23-8, 146 to Essendon 9-8, 62. Goal kickers for the Power. Pepper with 4, Butters with 3, Georgiades with 3, 2 each to Marshall, Finlayson and McAtee, and singles to Rosie, Amon, Bergman, Boat, Dixon, Drew and Houston. Meanwhile, for the Bombers, 2 to Perkins, 2 to D'Ambrosio, and singles to Hine, Langford, Martin, Parrish and Wright. It was a demolition job this afternoon by the Power, winning by 84 points. A very big win for Port Adelaide. The Power never really came on for the Bombers this afternoon, especially after the opening term. They were absolutely decimated. And Port Adelaide record their second biggest win of all time against the Essendon Football Club. So a big win for the Power. They'll be heading home very happy campers, and we'll get some reaction a little later on. Both sets of teams still out on Docklands here. Ben Rutten gathering his men at the top of the race, walking off with the players, Merritt and Redmond there to lead them off. Heppel getting around a few of the younger players, and it must be said all eyes are on the Bombers at the moment as they exit the arena, and not even much applause from the faithful who stuck around right until the very end this afternoon. A comprehensive performance from Port Adelaide. They're waiting for Jeremy Finlayson, who's completing some television commitments before they make their way over to a good bunch of Port Adelaide fans who've made their way over, some who live here, of course, and then they'll happily glut them down the race. We'll get the reaction from in the rooms with the song as well. We might start on the positives first with Port Adelaide, Kez and Jono, because we'll get to Essendon perhaps after the Port Adelaide song, and we can have a chat about where that leaves them after really a good last couple of months until the last 2 weeks. For the Power, though, that was comprehensive. Ken Hinkley would be a happy man tonight.
Oh, look, I mean, every Port Adelaide player, staff member, coach and supporter would be pretty thrilled after that performance tonight. That's exactly what they needed to do. I mean, I spoke at the start of the game about how I thought that Port Adelaide's best was better than Essendon's best, and we really did see the Power at their best tonight. They were terrific in that first quarter and withstood a little bit of pressure when Essendon, turned it up in that second quarter, and then just the class in all areas of the ground really shone through, particularly in that second half. I mean, if you have a look through the list, Ollie Wines was prolific. He had 31 touches and had 17 contested possessions. So, he was probably nearly close to best on ground. He was fantastic. Connor Rosie, he just continues to get better and better, and certainly showed his class tonight. And probably the one for mine that perhaps I've underrated a little bit in the past has been Sam Powell-Pepper. He had 22 disposals and kicked a career-high 4 goals. He was absolutely fantastic. And obviously, it's easy towards the end of the game, Jono, to run around and get some kicks and things like that. But when the heat was on at the beginning of the game, he was one that really showed up. And Jeremy Finlayson, probably wouldn't have talked about him too much throughout the season. He's been really good. Tonight he had 25 disposals and kicked 2 goals. And we talked a number of times throughout the night about the combination with him and Dixon going through the middle, playing that ruck forward role. And I think it was yourself who mentioned, Jono, that that's a really good versatile positional change for them, moving forward. And I think the most promising thing that Port Adelaide's got is their forward line. They've got so many options. We talk about Finlayson and Dixon and Marshall. Georgiades come in tonight, and he was solid. He didn't have the season best game, but he was really strong. And couple them with Pau Pepper, Rosie and Butters who go forward. They've got a number of options that is going to set them up really well going into next year, I'm sure.
So a big win for Port Adelaide this afternoon. We'll try and get down for some reaction in the rooms, but we'll get you their song, and we'll also get a couple of interviews. Hopefully we can touch base with both camps in just a little while. So Port Adelaide, big winners. Let's head down to the rooms for the song. Pretty happily, Port Adelaide camp downstairs. We'll head back down to Lauren as we get some reaction from Port Adelaide. They're pretty happy down there, it must be said, and they'll go home very happy this evening. So the final score, in case you're just joining us here at the Docklands, 23-8, 146, the Power defeating Essendon 9-8-62. Nice to see so many fans out having a kick of the footy on this Sunday evening as well. The MCG earlier today, Richmond were way too good for Hawthorn, winning by 61 points. And the big game at the SCG, Sydney 27-point winners over Collingwood. Over 44,500 at the SCG this afternoon. The biggest home and away crowd in 25 years at the SCG. So they will be barracking very much for a home final as well. They're sitting in second at the moment. If you've got a question for our experts, make sure you text through 0437 774 774 and we'll get to as many of them as we can. We're still on air for another 40 minutes, so we'll get to as many of your questions as possible. Just shoot us through a text and we will answer all of those as they come through. We'll do a bit of review of this round, but look forward to what is going to be a massive round 23 next week as well. Let's touch on the Bombers. We spoke about it before the game. Their last 6 weeks of footy had been quite encouraging. They'd come very close against Essendon. They'd gone up and, albeit a depleted Brisbane, but got the job done at the Gabba, which is not something that a lot of teams can say over the last couple of years. They beat the Gold Coast comprehensively, so they put together a really nice patch of footy, and then last week was ultra disappointing against the Giants, and then tonight they haven't fired a shot at all. Is this just a team reaching for the finishing line, and that's why they've tapered off in the last fortnight?
Look, Maisie, there's a couple of concerning points for me tonight, and I mentioned it through the broadcast a few different times, was the lack of confidence in their decision-making, the lack of confidence in wanting to go when they've got space in front of them. Now, you can either say that they don't know what to do, or is that an instruction from the coaching staff? Is that within their game structure, their game plan? Is not to take grass, is to stand there and wait for an opportunity to come up and use it by foot or by hand. But for me tonight, there was a lot, especially in the back half, and even going forward, the ability, when you've got someone like a Peter Wright that is up your forward line, then we know what he can do here. And he's played some pretty good games here, is that some of those kicks to him has actually gone to the advantage of the defender and not to the advantage of him. So there's a few parts around their ball movement and how they make decisions. But more than anything else, one thing I did notice within stoppages, centre clearances, centre bounces, boundary throw-ins and whatnot, was because they just wanted the handball. Like, from a centre bounce, I don't know why you'd want to overdo handball when you know forward in the new rule now, 6-6-6, that you haven't got a spare dropping back. There's not a ruckman dropping back. There's nothing else. So what is the fear of actually kicking it to one-on-one scenarios in your forward line? And that happened a lot tonight for us. And they've got a lot of stuff to go back and work on over this next bit. Last game next week, they'll go away, they'll have a break, and, they've got to start working on some things. And whether it's self-confidence within the individuals, and we've seen some poor turnovers. Even Redmond, we know that he's a great player, and he had some poor turnovers in the back half, and there was a few others in the back half as well. But for me at the moment, for Essendon, it's poor decision-making, lack of confidence, and the ability to over-handball in scenarios when they can actually go forward. Their forwards would be just out of so much frustration and out of position when those overuse of the handball is happening in the defence or through the middle of the ground. So they've got a lot to work on. And tonight, I spoke about it again, about the ability to scrap in the contest. They just didn't scrap in the contest. And what I mean by scrap, it means that you try to do everything you possibly can to either win the contest, and if you can't win the contest, draw the contest, pull it back in, and actually get a stoppage and create that opportunity where you can get numbers around the ball again.
So in terms of, we look at this a lot, the tackle count. I know it's a simple stat to go to, but they've had a lot less of the footy. They've kicked 14 less goals than Port Adelaide, and they've lost the tackle count 56-49. How disappointing would that be for Ben Rutt?
Oh, very disappointing. And you got to think about, okay, in what context are you missing? Are they missed tackles? So the one that we don't get, and I know is something that you need to look at, is missed tackles. So they may have been there but unable to tackle. So then you come back to it, and then you start looking at your tackle technique and how you're going about your tackle. Are you going in there to actually kill somebody, like really hurt someone, or you're going in there to corral them in, or actually give them some sort of outs or whatever it is? And I think the whole tackling piece is a big picture. It paints the big picture, and it actually shows you and tells you the will and the want to be able to compete.
Let's get some reaction from downstairs. Lauren Borden's in the Port Adelaide rooms. Loz.
Thanks, Maisie. I've got Connor Rosie with me. It was a really convincing win out there. You had your way for most of the game. What was the assessment of the match when you've just come out of the team meeting?
Yeah, everyone's pretty happy, of course, after a big win like that. It's obviously disappointing to not be in the race for finals, but I feel like we've still got a fair bit to play for in the last 2 weeks, and we want to finish strongly, and I think we did that today.
And you set up the win in the second quarter, just blitzed Essendon out of the park. How pleasing was it to come in at halftime and know that you'd set the game up well and just had to continue with what you were doing?
Yeah, pretty pleasing. They obviously play a pretty open style of game, and we knew it was going to be like that for most of the night, transition footy and lots of running up and back, a few turnovers. So we knew if we didn't turn over the ball much like we have over the last few weeks, that we could probably make them pay the other way.
And personally, you got a goal yourself. You had 28 touches. You had strapping on your left knee. You had a little bit of a niggle on the right knee. How did you go playing out the game? And you didn't seem to be hindered by it.
Yeah, it was pretty bloody sore, to be honest. Copped a knock in the first 2 minutes, which is always pleasing, on the knee that wasn't sore. So, it felt pretty old and bung out there. But, was able to get through, and luckily nothing serious. So that's the main thing. And I'll soldier on to next week and try and get through.
So what does the recovery look like tomorrow then when you get back to Adelaide?
Yeah, we've got a 6-day break, so I'll try and get down the beach if the weather's nice, which it hasn't been for the last week or so.
Beautiful. I'll send you upstairs for some further questions from our experts, Karen Peterson and Chris Johnson.
Connor, Chris Johnson here. Well done. Fantastic win by you guys tonight coming over here. Put a lot of speed on the ball. I guess when you sort of get to half-time and the margin blows out that far and coming in the three-quarter time, what are some of the key messages? Do you stick to what you have been talking about for the whole week leading into Essendon, or do you try and change a few things up?
No, we stuck to what we were trying to do before the game, which is win our contested ball. They're an outnumbered team. Their midfielders love to get over and outnumber, so... you get in front for a reason. You don't want to change how you play, and that can bring them back into the game. So, yeah, Kenny was pretty stern at half time that we needed to put the foot down and put the game away.
And you got Charlie Dixon and Finlayson playing in the ruck. Finlayson had a great game tonight, and look, the ability for those two now, for you and the football club to know that they can actually go in the ruck and do that. And once you get a ruckman back, it adds another string to your bow.
Yeah, definitely. they probably battle a little bit in there with the bigger ruckman, but once the ball hits the ground, they seem to be like an extra midfielder in there. So it can be challenging at times, but tonight they were 100%. When the ball hit the ground, they were able to hit the scoreboard as well. So it's nice to have them in there, and hopefully when we get our main ruckman back, we can win a few more hitouts.
Connor, congratulations on the win tonight. It's Karen Peterson up here. I wanted to ask you, last week, obviously coming up against a very different opponent with Richmond, you guys were beaten quite comprehensively around the stoppages, and I think you went down by 20, you gave up 27 points from stoppages. You completely flipped that tonight, and you were actually plus 41 scoring from stoppages. Was there something that was specifically changed through the week, or was it highlighted, or how did you guys go about making such a drastic change to that? Yeah, we've been a pretty strong stoppage side throughout the whole year, so it was a bit of an abnormality last week when we didn't get that going, and we probably let their ruckman get over us a bit, which makes it hard as a midfield group when you're sort of just trailing the opposition. And it's always a challenge, but tonight I think once we get the ball on the ground, it's a bit of a 50-50 ball. We feel like we're on top, so. I guess that's a challenge that we face head on, and we've always been a good stoppage group. It's about converting that into score, and we did that tonight. Yeah, I think you did that terrifically well. I wanted to ask you as well, just quickly, about the mindset of not only yourself but the rest of the team coming into a game like tonight, where you know that there's not really a lot on the line as far as finals are concerned and those sort of things. We've heard through the week Ken Hinkley talking about obviously every opportunity that you've got moving forward is about what happens in season 2023. How do you as a player and as a playing group try and keep, the balance right in showing up and playing well in games like it was today, with also one eye on the future, looking forward to season 2023? Yeah, it can be a challenge, but I think there's still a lot to play for us personally. We feel like we've got a pretty young group, and our young players, especially individually, are still growing every week and have something to prove. So it's definitely not a case of us rocking up and just trying to get through the next couple of weeks. We feel like we want to be one of those clubs that turns up every week no matter what. So, I guess us not making finals is disappointing, but I don't think we ever want to be a club that's known for rolling over and just trying to get through to the end of the season. Connor, tell us about that centre bounce clearance and stoppages around the ground. I know you mentioned that it has been a bit of an experiment with no major ruckman in there, or no recognised number one ruckman. What do you prefer as a midfielder? Do you prefer extra hands at ground level, or do you prefer someone who can put it down your throat? Yeah, good question. I don't know if I've really played with many ruckmen so far that have been dominant. So, we had Sam Hayes, a younger bloke early in the season, who's probably more of a traditional ruckman. But other than that, the other two boys have been enormous since they go in there. It's a hard question because I don't know. I haven't really played with a dominant ruck week in, week out. But it seems as though when we're able to, halve that ruck contest, we feel like we've got an outnumber. But in saying that, it's also difficult once the opposition ruck gets their hand on it without any contest. Yeah, 50 hit-outs to 9 tonight. You lost, but you almost levelled the clearances. So it's didn't know about that. It's an interesting point about ruckman. Don't tell any of them that sometimes they can be a little bit useless, the big boys. I'll be going straight in there. Another one as well, in terms of the talk and the outside noise, it would have been over here in Victoria, it was quite large headlines, but I'm sure it would have been a fair few headlines back home in South Australia. Was there any mention from Ken about David Koch's comments through the week, or was that brought up by the leadership group at all? Is it just completely ignored and moved on from? It feels like every year we get to this point where people are trying to get into Ken because we haven't won enough games, or that sort of thing. So it's almost normal this time of year that we know we want Kenny here, and he's got another year on his contract, and he's been absolutely awesome for us over the last 10 or so years. So there wasn't really need for a mention specifically from the leadership group. We know we're playing for Kenny every week, and we'd love him to stay. So externally, people are going to talk about it this time of year when we probably haven't performed as strong as we would have liked throughout the year, but we want to have him here and we love him. Port Adelaide Live Wire, Connor Rosie's with us on Grandstand AFL. Connor, showdown weeks are always fun over in the City of Churches. It's a home showdown for you next week against the Crows. We know what happened back earlier in the season with that thrilling finish and the goal from Jordan Dawson. What does showdown week look like for you? Do you
Can you sort of keep a bit of a low profile over in Adelaide, because they're always a pretty big deal?
Yeah, you're right. It's a big week. Splits the state in half, I guess. So, I mean, there'll be no lack of motivation for next week. Like I said before, we want to be the team that finishes off the season well, but showdowns, there's no need for extra motivation. We'd won a few showdowns in a row, and we unfortunately put an end to that at the start of the season, so we'll be looking to bounce back, and there's nothing better than beating the Crows at home.
And hopefully you don't require a kick after the siren to do it.
No, that'll be good.
Connor, thanks so much for your time this afternoon. All the best for the trip back home. Good luck, not only next week, but then in the off-season as well. We can't wait to see you strut your stuff again here in Melbourne next year.
Thanks for having me.
Connor Rozee joining us. Absolute star. What a season he's had too.
Just wish he could stay injury-free.
Yeah.
Yep. I mean, I remember I called a lot of him in that first season, having spent the year in Adelaide. In his first year in 2019, he was an absolute live wire, and he's been just plagued by injuries since. He really hasn't had a chance, and you see the knee strapping, and he takes a hit early on today. But with Travis Boak going out of the side in the next couple of years, he's still an absolute evergreen, is Travis Boak, and had plenty of it today. But he just adds a completely different dimension to that Port Adelaide midfield group.
And Jono, his movement out of stoppages was amazing today. It's a feature.
He's smooth. He's one of those smooth movers, and he's probably nudging up in not that close, but to a Shea Bolton. Shea Bolton, what he's been able to produce for Richmond Football Club, I feel that Connor Rozee is going to get into that element and that level. He probably hasn't got the aerial work, but he can get up there from time to time.
He can. He took I think in the pre-season of his first season, he took an absolute hanger against the Crows in a pre-season game. He took one against North Melbourne in a Friday night game there at the Adelaide Oval. You look at their drafting though. So they took the 3 first-round picks in that year were Rozee, Butters, Dersma. The following year they got Bergman and Georgiades. It's a really handy couple of seasons that Chris Davies and the crew at Port put together in terms of who they've picked up and where they've been able to slot into this team.
Well, Bergman's starting to come to the fore, isn't he? He's I've seen him run around in the NAB League coming through down here in Melbourne, and played at Sandy, I think he did, and he was a smooth mover then, and I think it's just taken him a little while to adapt, and had a few injuries and bits and pieces, but it's taken him a little while to adapt to senior football. But Butters tonight, and I looked at him tonight, and I'd seen him come through the NAB League as well at the Western Jets and through the national under-18s competition. His turn of speed and his ability to hit targets when he's leaning off the ball, Kez, he leans off the ball and sort of does these chip over. Some of his work tonight was fantastic. He just looked like he was faster than everybody else. His agility, and same with Connor Rozee as well, his agility to actually get around people at speed is elite at the moment. And I think Connor Rozee, he can certainly elevate himself next year. He's been one of those players this year that has been one of the players that has produced a fair bit for Port Adelaide. He hasn't been one of those ones that have dropped away. He's been one of those ones that he'll probably feature high in their best and fairest. Yeah. Closely. Obviously, a few injuries, missed a few games, but certainly he's worth his weight in gold.
Todd Marshall would be the other one who's really kicked on, where they haven't got the same level of performance out of a lot of them, Port Adelaide, but they have there. So Josh Sinn was picked 12 at this year's draft. We haven't seen a lot of him, but he was massively rated coming over to Port Adelaide. And then, of course, Lockie Jones, who we have seen, the big brute they took at pick 16 in the previous draft. They got Jed McEntee in the mid-season draft. They've obviously added Jace Burgoyne this year, who's played some good footy as well. So they have recruited pretty smartly with those younger players, Port Adelaide, and then being able to top up with the likes of Finlayson along the journey, Trent McKenzie coming from the Gold Coast, who's played his role. They've just been able to top the list up nicely.
That recruiting part of Finlayson into this side has been it's been genius, because if they didn't have him, they'd only have Dixon and I don't know who else, so they'd have to push Marshall into the ruck as well. And look, he'd done a bit of rucking when he was at the Giants, and tonight he was fantastic. And I seen him a few weeks ago. I think it may have been up against Melbourne when he was up against Gawn and Jackson, and he was just he was overwhelmed. Then he was just out of his depth there. But tonight, even though he was up against a Draper and Nick Bryant, who was coming through only in his third year as well, that is coming through, he done a fantastic job, and so did Charlie Dixon.
So I asked Connor Rozee about it. What do you two think about ruckman and their worth in terms of obviously tonight? 50 hit-outs to 9. That's only transferred into a clearance win, I think, by 10 or 11 or 9, somewhere around that. How important is an exquisite tap ruckman v that extra pair of hands and pressure and attack on the ball at ground level? What's the preference? Which way would you go?
Well, I think you could probably make an argument both ways. I think that the most overrated stat in football is probably the hit-out stat because, I mean, often getting a fingertip to it, and unless you're looking at the likes of someone like Gawn or, obviously Nat Nui when he was up and firing, where they were really clearly, tapping it and controlling the possession. Often that stat is, the ball fumbles around anyway. So, I mean, the utopia with the ruckman is someone who can almost play a little bit like what Jeremy Finlayson was doing tonight, where he was competing, but then he was that that fourth set of hands, and that follow-up work that he was able to produce and, get a few clearances for himself tonight. So I think it's a really hard question to answer because it depends a lot on the midfielders that you've got around you. And, you look at the likes of Gawn, and I think if he was on the trade table, I think every team in the competition would be wanting, him or his services on their list. And so I think a lot of it goes into as well, if you're purely just a tap ruckman, you're not going to do all that well in AFL anymore. I think it's going to be that the ruckman in the future, like what Gawn does, where he's able to push forward and impact the scoreboard when the time is right and that it's necessary. He goes behind the ball and plays that spare plugging role. So ruckmen that are able to do kind of multiple roles on the ground are worth their weight in gold, and they're the ones that are having the biggest impact.
I feel this year we haven't seen any real big dominant ruckman.
Yep.
It's been a hard sort of, we've obviously Gawn is the best ruckman in the competition, but there's been no one that sort of challenged him. And, I think at the moment where you talk about tap ruckman versus another spare runner on the ground or a spare hands on the ground, I think what it comes back to is the chemistry between your midfielders and your ruckman. And I reckon those taps, they need to probably reassess how they average them or how they count them and be taps to advantage, because that's what it's got to be around. It's got to be, and that's how you sort of you sort of weigh up your ability of your ruckman